051 Special Hidden Mission. On the left side of the canyon, from time to time, one or two zombies would roll down the hillside and join the cluster of zombies below. In such a scene, if it were a person with trypophobia, he would definitely faint to the ground and foam at the mouth. Fortunately, Jiujiu, although he only traveled through the first world, he had experienced countless battles, large and small, and was no longer frightened when facing so many walking corpses. Looking at the 70 mechanical traps in the space, Jiujiu had the urge to curse. Compared to the number of zombies in the canyon and the number of 70 traps, there is really no way to kill them all. But there is no way, even if he can't kill Jiujiu, he still has to kill him, not only to complete Mission 4, but also to consider Beth's future safety. Otherwise, when all the zombies rush out, the villa will be the first place attacked by zombies. Although the steel walls of the villa are very strong, Jiujiu believes that they will never be able to withstand the impact of tens of thousands of densely packed zombies, and the zombies will eventually break through the defense. And even if we can stop them, how long can the villa last without supplies? No need to go out and look for supplies. To sit back and eat nothing is to seek death. Therefore, for the safety of Beth after he leaves, Jiujiu will kill all the walking corpses here, even if it takes a month or even months. Determined, Jiujiu began to take out the traps from the space and threw them down the canyon. He used the metal materials in the space and energy to create traps and arrow steel balls. Traps were thrown into the canyon one by Jiujiu without any concern. There was nothing he could do about it. After throwing these traps, Jiujiu would not want to take them back. There is no other way. Tens of thousands of corpses are piled up for you to go down and search for them. Are you willing? Since the walking zombies below can be said to be so densely packed that there is no space between them, so if a trap is thrown, dozens of walking zombies will be killed. This kind of killing efficiency is much higher than what Jiujiu saw in the town before. Gather the zombies and kill them much faster. After throwing down 10 traps, the number of kills reached 300 to 400, and the mission was getting closer and closer. Jiujiu was not happy at all, because the metal materials stored for so long were being consumed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Anyone would feel distressed. Although these metal materials did not cost Jiujiu any money, they did take a lot of time and energy. Even though Jiujiu now recovers 12 points of energy every minute, he still can't bear the constant consumption of energy. When he was a child, Jiujiu sat helplessly on the edge of the cliff, looking at the walking corpse with only a small gap missing below, and sighed deeply. The energy was exhausted and had to wait for the energy to slowly recover. Jiujiu was bored and thought about how to kill the walking zombies quickly. Unfortunately, it has been a few years since the end of the world. Except for some guns, powerful weapons of destruction have long since been found, and even fuel cannot be found in large quantities. To be honest, Jiujiu wished he could get a black egg and throw it down to blow the canyon to the ground, but he could only think about it. After more than an hour, Jiujiu sat up and continued to make traps, load traps, throw traps, and kill walking corpses. Until the evening, Jiujiu looked at the number of walking corpses below, which had not decreased too much, stood up, got in the car and drove towards the villa. Along the road, the metals and abandoned cars were collected into the space and smelted into materials. When they returned to the villa, it was already 9 o'clock in the evening. Beth had been standing on the wall of the villa, waiting for Jiujiu to come back. When she saw Jiujiu's car coming back, she cheered and went down to the ground, opened the door for Jiujiu herself, and jumped in before the car stopped. He came over, opened the car door and threw himself into Jiujiu's arms. In the following days, Jiujiu still came to the canyon every day to kill the walking zombies. When he ran out of energy, he went out to look for metal. 3 days later, the system prompt sounded. Congratulations to the host, for completing Hidden Mission 4, killing the walking zombies, 10021/10,000, and being rewarded with 5,000 experience points and a drawing of a modified motorcycle for an ordinary mount. Congratulations to the host for triggering a special hidden mission, solving Beth's troubles, completely killing the canyon walking dead, and being rewarded with 5,000 experience points, a mechanical dog upgrade blueprint, and a special permission. Hearing the sound of the system, Jiujiu couldn't help but his heart beat faster. He was so surprised. I originally thought that I would give up a world mission reward and give Beth a mechanical dog to protect her, but I didn't expect that there would be an additional special hidden mission, and the reward would still be a special permission. Jiujiu was very grateful that he had watched all the episodes of The Walking Dead before remembering this place. He was even more grateful that he came to kill the walkers here for Beth's safety. Not only did he complete Hidden Mission 4, but he also had the good luck to trigger the special hidden tasks. Jiujiu wanted to ask the system if he could use this special permission request to bring Beth to his world, so he asked the system impatiently. System, can special permission bring Beth to my world? System. Sorry host, this is not possible. With your current authority and ability, the system cannot open the time and space travel channel for people other than the host. Hearing this, Jiujiu felt very disappointed. Although he was reluctant to let go of Beth, he still had to endure the reluctance in his heart and leave Beth alone in this world. Looking at the canyon where only 1/10 of the zombies were missing, Jiujiu vented all his dissatisfaction on these zombies. The newly made mechanical traps were loaded with arrows and steel balls, and Jiujiu threw them into the canyon. It was visible to the naked eye that the canyon was already covered with a thick layer of zombie corpses. The sound of the traps exploding attracted the nearby zombies, and the corpses were piled up layer by layer, and a corpse platform more than half a meter high and 30 meters wide had been piled up. Killing zombies like this is a very boring and tedious thing. Whenever Jiujiu was about to lose patience, he would look at the rewards of the special hidden tasks, and then continue to make traps with full energy, and throw traps to kill zombies. Time passed quickly, and more than 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. Now Jiujiu can no longer kill zombies in the same place. He has to change places every once in a while, because the corpses are piled up high and the zombies can't climb up, so Jiujiu has to change places. More than 2 months later, the effect was obvious. Although the speed of trap making could not keep up with the speed of Jiujiu throwing traps, more than half of the zombies in the canyon were killed, leaving only more than 7,000 zombies, which could not be killed because they were too far away from the canyon. Looking at the terrain of the canyon with a headache, it was not easy to continue killing zombies. What to do? It is absolutely impossible to rush into the zombie group to kill the zombies. Even if Jiujiu and Zhang Lang were together, it would be impossible to come and go freely among the 7,000 or 8,000 zombies. If it were 100 or 80 zombies, Jiujiu would still have the confidence to kill them, but he really didn't have the courage to kill 7,000 or 8,000. It was already evening. Jiujiu looked up at the sky, then looked down at the zombies more than 500 meters away from him, turned around helplessly and got on the car, all the way back to the villa base. Chevron_left 052 mount, chasing the wind. Returning to the villa to rest, Jiujiu used the free time after being intimate with Beth to enter the space to create traps and arrows and steel balls. Google search reading. While still thinking about how to clean up the zombies in the canyon, thinking of the number of zombies killed in the past few months and the piled up corpse platforms, Jiujiu's eyes suddenly lit up and said, "Yes. How could I forget the corpse platforms that the zombies couldn't climb up? Can't I use ropes to go down from the cliff to the canyon, stand on the pile of corpses, use the sound to attract the zombies to gather, and then throw traps?" Thinking of this, Jiujiu also relaxed, and then thought that the number of traps was still not enough. He had to take advantage of these few days to create more traps, so that he could kill all the zombies in the canyon in one go. But there was no rush for this matter. He had to make a mount and modify the motorcycle first. To be honest, he had been coveting this mount for a long time. Thinking of the mechanical crossbow and mechanical dog, he could guess that the modified motorcycle would be another amazing thing. Early the next morning, Jiujiu left the villa and found a secluded place to start making a modified motorcycle that he had long forgotten because he was busy killing zombies. There were various types of motorcycles obtained from the saviors in the space. According to the needs of the drawings, the parts that could continue to be used were removed, and the required modified parts were smelted out with a smelting furnace. It took more than an hour to finally complete all the required parts. Jiujiu looked at the space workbench excitedly and began to assemble the parts one by one. In just 10 minutes, all the parts were assembled. Looking at the high-tech motorcycle in front of him, Jiujiu couldn't wait to summon the mount from the space. With a clang, a motorcycle with a total length of 3 meters, a height of 1 meter, 2 huge wheels in front and back, a driver's seat, and a seat in the back appeared in front of Jiujiu. However, no matter how Jiujiu looked at it, he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. After thinking about it for a while, he thought of Batman's motorcycle. After comparing the two, Jiujiu was sure that this was Batman's motorcycle. With curiosity, Jiujiu asked the system. "System, you won't be lazy and copy one for me according to Batman's motorcycle, right?" System: "Yes, it is Batman's motorcycle, but it is a motorcycle modified by the system. Not only does it have the performance of Batman's motorcycle, but it also has many functions such as: it has a built-in balancing system that will never fall, the wheels can rotate 360 degrees freely, the body has powerful crossbow weapons, vehicle-mounted missiles, not available without ammunition, vehicle-mounted energy cannons, master recognition function, automatic driving, cannot be enabled without suitable artificial intelligence, all-terrain adaptation, and other functions. The key is that you can travel 500 kilometers at a full speed of 200 kilometers per hour without filling the fuel. After the host level is upgraded, it can be upgraded to a more powerful mount according to the corresponding drawings." After listening to the system's introduction, Jiujiu was still a little shocked. A vehicle-mounted energy cannon is much more advanced than Batman's motorcycle. The key is that it can be upgraded, and Jiujiu is even more satisfied. Unable to wait, under the guidance of the system, he carried out the mount recognition procedure, filled the motorcycle with energy, and then Jiujiu lifted his legs and sat on the motorcycle, took off his helmet and put it on his head. Not to mention, the design of this helmet is so damn cool. It is fully enclosed, and the key is that it is not as bloated as those motorcycle helmets. It feels like wearing a mask, comfortable and with a good enough field of vision. Reaching out to hold the handlebars of the motorcycle, the body is almost completely attached to the motorcycle, feeling extremely comfortable and fitting. The Wolf Warrior has been collected by Jiujiu into the pet space. The motorcycle started slowly after ignition. After adapting to the front for dozens of meters, Jiujiu gradually began to accelerate, from dozens of kilometers per hour to 100 kilometers per hour, and Jiujiu cheered loudly. The feeling of rushing like lightning and the thunderous roar of the motorcycle made Jiujiu feel unprecedented comfort. Driving on flat roads, over weedy grasslands, riverbanks, rocks, and even climbing mountains, Jiujiu fully tested the various capabilities of the motorcycle. Whether it was turning sharply or changing lanes to pass obstacles, there was no difficulty at all. It was really awesome. In the end, he even hired a place to test the power of the vehicle-mounted crossbow and vehicle-mounted energy cannon. It was very good. Although it could not shoot as fast as a rifle or a submachine gun, the speed of 1 arrow per second still made Jiujiu very satisfied. The key is that the arrow capacity of the vehicle-mounted crossbow has been greatly improved. A full 100 crossbow arrows are enough for Jiujiu to break through any roadblocks. The arrows of the vehicle-mounted crossbow are different from Jiujiu's mechanical crossbow. They are only 10 centimeters long and as thick as chopsticks, but their power is several times that of the mechanical crossbow. Not to mention the energy cannon, which is powerful enough to be compared with the shoulder-fired rockets. The key is that the firing speed is fast enough, but the energy consumed makes Jiujiu feel distressed. One shot is 200 energy, and Jiujiu's current energy is not enough for it to fire a few shots. Unfortunately, the killing range is only 5 meters, so Jiujiu gave up the idea of using the mount to kill the zombies. A few hours later, Jiujiu drove the motorcycle back to the villa with an unsatisfied feeling. As soon as it appeared, it immediately amazed everyone, especially Daryl, who loved motorcycles, and wanted to embed his eyes into this high-tech motorcycle. Unfortunately, not everyone can ride Jiujiu's mount. Even if Jiujiu agreed, no one except Jiujiu could start the motorcycle. Naturally, Beth became the first passenger of the mount and enjoyed the feeling of speeding. Once the novelty of the mount wore off, Jiujiu immersed himself in the work of making traps. He spent a week collecting materials and made 300 traps, which were enough for Jiujiu to kill all the zombies in the canyon at one time. Fortunately, Jiujiu's space has now expanded to 1,000 square meters, otherwise it really couldn't fit so many traps, and he rested for another day. Jiujiu got Beth early in the morning, rode the mount he named, Chasing the Wind, and drove out of the villa. What he didn't know was that this time he was followed by several tails. It was none other than Maggie, Glenn, Daryl, Abraham, and others led by Beth. To be honest, these people were really curious about what Jiujiu was doing every day when he went out early and came back late. So at Beth's request, several people followed him out immediately. Jiujiu did not drive too fast, so that several people did not lose him, so they came to the edge of the canyon cliff one after another. Jiujiu did not hesitate, and Zhue Feng stayed on the cliff, not worrying about who could steal it. Just kidding, it weighed more than a ton, not everyone could move it easily. 053 Daryl and his companions were shocked. Before Beth and others arrived, Jiujiu took out a long enough rope, tied one end to the boulder on the edge of the cliff, and hung the other end down into the canyon. Jiujiu grabbed the rope and descended into the canyon. The height of more than 100 meters was not difficult for Jiujiu. Not to mention descending, even if he climbed up from the bottom of the canyon, it would be a waste of time. After only descending a few dozen meters, Beth and the others reached the edge of the cliff. They parked the car and several people got out of the car, but they could not see Jiujiu. When they came to the edge of the cliff, everyone had not seen Jiujiu, but they were so frightened by the scene in front of them that their faces turned pale. On the mountain road opposite, you could clearly see countless zombies lining up in a long line, blocked behind two box-type heavy trucks. In the canyon below, there were at least several thousand zombies lining up behind them. There were many zombies that looked like they had been killed, and the corpses were piled high. Daryl, who had sharp eyes, also saw Jiujiu who was descending. Daryl finally knew why Jiujiu had been leaving early and coming back late for several months. It turned out that Jiujiu had discovered this gathering place of zombies a long time ago. For everyone's safety, he came to kill the zombies alone. To be honest, Daryl was really moved at this moment. If it were him, he would not be able to kill so many walking corpses even if he kept killing them for a year. But Jiujiu did when we arrive. We don't want everyone to be afraid and worried when they find out. Not to mention Daryl, Maggie, and Beth were already pale with fright, and Glenn was biting his lips tightly, unable to say a word, and there were even tears flashing in his eyes. His emotions the richest and most understanding of why Jiujiu did what he did. Having seen how Jiujiu killed the walking corpses in groups, he couldn't help but be moved by Jiujiu's persistence for several months to kill the walking corpses. Abraham opened his mouth wide and said after a long while, "Yi is the real hero and the real man. I, Abraham, truly admire him and worship him." To be honest, the reason Abraham came with him was just like Daryl. He was coveting Jiujiu's motorcycle, hoping that Jiujiu would take them to the place where they found this motorcycle, and wanted to find the same one and ride it himself. Get on one. But he didn't expect to see the shocking scene in front of him. As a soldier, he certainly knew why Jiujiu wanted to kill these walking corpses. Because the tanker truck blocking the road is obviously in danger of overturning by then. Abraham was terrified just thinking about it. There were so many zombies. If Jiujiu hadn't killed so many, everyone in Alexander Villa would have died. At this time, Beth, after being shocked, couldn't help hugging Maggie's neck, burying her head in Maggie's chest and crying. Maggie reached out and gently touched Beth's back to comfort her sister. He said to several people, "Can we help him?" Hearing this, the three Abrahams all shook their heads, and Daryl said in embarrassment, "None of us can help him. We don't have the ability to go down to the canyon. Even if we go down, we can't help him and will become a burden to him. It's better to cheer him up from above." Hey! There was no way. They didn't dare to go down into the canyon. At a height of more than 100 meters, even if they barely reached the bottom of the canyon, they couldn't even think of climbing back up. Only Yi, an inhuman being, could move up and down freely. Jiujiu, who was halfway down, seemed to notice something strange above his head, and looked up in surprise. Unfortunately, he couldn't see anything due to his limited field of vision, so he muttered something strange and continued to slide down. When he went down to the bottom of the valley and stepped on the stinky corpse of a walking corpse, Jiujiu regretted it. It really stinks. Thinking about it, no one can resist the stench of so many rotting corpses piled together. Fortunately, Jiujiu still wore a helmet on his head and hurriedly started the air filtering device, which made him feel better. The next moment, Jiujiu had to face a new problem, that is, stepping on the corpse, he could not move as freely as on flat ground. Jiujiu secretly cursed bad luck. Now that he was down, it was impossible to climb up the same way. He had to carefully step on the corpse of the zombie and move forward step by step. It took a lot of effort to walk to the edge of the pile of corpses, take out an alarm clock from his pocket, and throw it 50 meters away. 1 minute after the alarm clock fell to the ground, the rapid ringing of ring, ring, ring immediately rang the surrounding people. The corpse was attracted. After the zombies were almost gathered, Jiujiu took out the trap from the space and threw it into the pile of zombies. One trap killed dozens of zombies. While the alarm clock continued to ring, Jiujiu threw out the trap without hesitation and continued to kill the walking corpses. At this scene, except for Gwen, who had seen it before, the others, including Beth, who had been with Jiujiu for the longest time, all opened their mouths in surprise. Several people have the same feeling. Is it so easy to kill walking zombies? Is the inconspicuous little thing he threw so powerful? It's no wonder that a few people made such a fuss. Although Beth had seen this thing before and knew that it was called a mechanical trap, she didn't know that it was so powerful. If you think about it, you will know that when Jiujiu used the trap in front of Beth, he was ambushing the Salvation Army. The power of the trap at that time was only to kill a few Salvation Army at a time. But the power of killing the zombies is unimaginable, and it can kill all the zombies within 20 meters in one go. Only at this moment did everyone understand how Jiujiu had killed so many walking corpses in a few months. Jiujiu didn't know yet that his act of killing the walking dead was being watched by Bess and others, so it didn't matter even if they knew about it. Because in more than 2 months, he will leave here. Under the solemn and excited gazes of several people, Jiujiu repeated his actions, throwing out alarm clocks to attract the zombies to gather, and throwing traps to kill the zombies in groups. No one knew how long it had been, even Jiujiu's physical fitness at 6 o'clock when I feel like I can't take it anymore. There were about 100 traps left in the space. Jiujiu raised his head and looked at the remaining zombies in the canyon. The number was finally only more than 3,000. He breathed a huge sigh of relief, and regardless of the stench of the corpses beneath him, the tired Jiujiu sat down on the pile of bodies and rested. Seeing this scene, Beth on the cliff felt heartbroken and kept saying to Maggie, "Uncle has worked too hard. I must cook him a delicious meal when I go back to comfort him. Sister, Uncle is really awesome. So many walking corpses. They are all, Uncle, killed by one person." Maggie looked helplessly at her excited and incoherent sister, and could only agree with her, fearing that if she got excited, she would go down and kill the walking corpses with E.054 unexpected appearance. Abraham and the others were no longer surprised, and were obviously numb to Yikun's killing of the walking corpses. After resting for half an hour, Jiujiu stood up from the corpse and continued to throw out alarm clocks and traps to kill the walking corpses. It was not until all the walking corpses below the canyon were killed that Jiujiu walked towards the cliff with satisfaction. There are still more than 1,000 zombies left, and the ringing of the alarm clock can no longer attract the zombies from that far away. The only way is to go up the cliff and continue on the other side. Watching Jiujiu walk back to the cliff, hold the rope and climb up, the 5 people waited quietly. In just over half an hour, Jiujiu climbed up on his hands and feet, but was surprised to see Beth and others, all looking at him with admiration. Jiujiu said hi to everyone, and climbed up the cliff with his hands and feet. Jiujiu stirred his hands up and down to collect the rope, and asked, "Why are you here? Are you following me?" Hearing this, Beth immediately said resentfully, "What are you talking about? You came out to deal with so many zombies alone and didn't even tell us. We can help you." Hearing this, Jiujiu smiled nonchalantly and said, "There is no need to tell you, such a small number of zombies is nothing to me." Hearing this, everyone was speechless and said in their hearts, "Is this a bit of a Walking Dead? That's you. If it were anyone else who didn't kill me, I'd be scared to death." As he spoke, the movement of collecting the rope in his hands accelerated. In a few minutes, he collected the rope that was more than 100 meters long. Jiujiu tied a knot on the rope, hung it on the motorcycle, sat on it and stretched out his hand to Beth. Said, "Now that you're here, let's go and kill all the remaining zombies together. We can complete the mission and go back. There are still many things to do after this." After hearing this, Beth immediately happily trotted to the back seat of the motorcycle. She lifted her long legs and sat on the back seat of the motorcycle. She naturally hugged Jiujiu's waist with her hands and pressed her head tightly against Jiujiu's back. On his back, he turned his head and smiled sweetly at Maggie. Maggie and the others, who had been fed a bitch, gave a helpless smile and got into the car one after another. Under the leadership of Jiujiu, they took a detour to the opposite mountain road. It took half an hour to kill many zombies that were squeezing from heavy trucks along the road. When everyone arrived on the mountain road, they saw another female zombie squeezing through the gap. Seeing the corpse's body cut open by the corner of the truck, with dirty blood still dripping to the ground, Jiujiu raised his hand and shot her in the head with a crossbow arrow, killing her. The sound of the engine immediately attracted a group of zombies, and the zombies immediately became agitated. Many zombies were vigorously hitting the body of the box-type heavy truck blocking the road, making a bang sound. Jiujiu was afraid that if this situation continued, the heavy truck would crash into the canyon, and more than 2,000 zombies would swarm out. He was not afraid, but Beth and the others would be in trouble. As he got out of the car, he told Abraham and others to pay attention to killing the walking corpses that rushed out. Jiujiu sprinted to a heavy truck leaning against the mountain wall. He jumped up and easily grabbed the edge of the cargo box and climbed onto the truck. Car roof. There is no need to attract the zombies. The zombies on the mountain road are crowded one by one. After they are all raised high, they raise their heads and roar at Jiujiu on the roof of the truck, as if Jiujiu will be swallowed up in the next moment. With outsiders around, Jiujiu still had to pretend. He took off the backpack on his back, reached in and took out a trap. He threw it 30 meters away with a shake of his hand and hit a zombie on the head, triggering an explosion and shooting an arrow immediately. Arrows and steel balls came and killed all the walking corpses within 20 meters. The formation of zombies on the mountain road instantly created a 20-meter-long fault. The smell of fresh flesh and blood and the sound of the trap being triggered made the zombies blocked under the truck go crazy. There were at least hundreds of zombies. The corpse kept hitting the truck body with its body, making a dull bang-bang sound. Abraham, Gwen, and Maggie each held a rifle and shot at the zombies in the gap between the two trucks to reduce the number of zombies that hit the truck body. In just an instant, the 20-meter gap was filled up by the zombies that followed. Jiujiu took out another trap and threw it. After killing about 1,000 zombies in this way, I finally got a short rest. The main reason was that the zombies behind were blocked by the corpses of the zombies killed in front, and the zombies in the gaps between the trucks were also blocked by Maggie. Almost all the people were shot. At this moment, an accident occurred. The heavy truck near the cliff was overwhelmed. Amidst the exclamations of Beth and others, the front of the truck sank and capsized down the cliff. It fell to the cliff 20 after reaching the meter. It rolled several times in a row and fell heavily to the bottom of the cliff. This time, several people were frightened. Even Jiujiu, who was in another truck, turned pale with fear. Fortunately, he had the foresight to settle on the roof of this truck, otherwise, the consequences are simply unimaginable. The fall of the truck brought a dozen zombies behind the truck down the cliff. There were still a dozen zombies who rushed out of the half-open mountain road without any obstruction. The target is Maggie and the others. Fortunately, these people have weapons in their hands. Even Beth has the mechanical crossbow that Jiujiu gave her, so there is no need to worry about their safety. The 1,000 zombies behind rushed over in a swarm. Jiujiu hurriedly took out the trap and threw it out. One was not enough, so he continued to throw out a few traps. For a while, the roars of the zombies, the gunshots of Abraham and others, and the whoosh sound when the traps were triggered were all loud. There were more than 1,000 zombies, and Jiujiu was busy and flustered. He couldn't wait for the zombies to gather together, and he had to throw traps to kill them. In order to prevent Beth and others from being besieged by too many zombies, Jiujiu had to do this, and wasting a few traps was helpless. Beth and others tried hard to kill the zombies. At this moment, they also deeply understood how difficult it was for Jiujiu to kill tens of thousands of zombies. It was really tiring. Not only was the tension mentally exhausted, but also the fatigue of both hands caused by the constant shooting. Seeing more and more zombies rushing over, Jiujiu threw traps to kill the zombies while shouting to Beth and the others. Maggie, take Beth and the others and go first. There are more and more zombies rushing over. Go. Don't distract me. Hearing this, Maggie naturally saw the current situation clearly. Jiujiu was on the roof of the truck and would not be in danger for a while, but they were different. They were on the ground. Once there were too many zombies rushing over, they would be in danger of being knocked down by the zombies. Without hesitation, Maggie fired while pulling Beth, who was determined not to leave, and retreated to the car. 055 Special mission completed. Beth struggled to break free several times but was pulled back by Maggie. She was about to break free, but was awakened by Maggie's words. Beth, do you want you to worry about you? Don't you believe in his ability? Believe in him, he will be fine. If you stay, you will be distracted and drag him down. Come with me. This made Beth wake up and stop struggling. She gritted her teeth and shot another zombie that rushed over, and shouted to Jiujiu on the roof of the car. Uncle, I'll wait for you to come back. If you don't come back, I'll come to find you. Jiujiu didn't have time to talk nonsense with Beth. While continuing to throw traps, he shouted without looking back. Don't worry about me, Beth, I'll be fine. As long as you are safe, I can deal with these zombies with peace of mind. Go. It will be too late if you don't leave now. Hearing this, Beth shot another zombie and turned and rushed into the car. Gwen had already started the car and didn't even have time to turn around and directly reversed out of the mountain road. After chasing for more than 100 meters and failing to catch up with the car, the zombies turned around and gathered around the truck. Watching the car leaving, Jiujiu finally breathed a sigh of relief, looked up at the mountain wall above his head, calculated in his mind and muttered. Well, I can climb up. After that, Jiujiu climbed up the mountain wall with nimble hands and feet. Looking at the zombies under the truck, it was more than 30 meters away, which was safe enough. Jiujiu took out the trap again and threw it into the pile of zombies. Diamond suit, diamond suit. 500 meters away, Beth and others had stopped the car. Seeing Jiujiu climb up the steep 30-meter mountain wall with his own hands, everyone could no longer be surprised. It seemed that any impossible thing that happened to Yi was reasonable and natural. Watching Jiujiu easily kill the zombies under the mountain wall, everyone felt that they were too useless and could not help at all. Another half an hour later, the zombies under the cliff had been basically killed by the trap. Jiujiu went down the cliff again with his bare hands. After landing on the roof of the truck, he pulled out his dog-shaped double swords from his thighs and jumped off the roof of the truck with one step. After landing and rolling to release the inertia, Jiujiu waved his double swords to kill the dozen zombies who rushed over after discovering him. Facing a dozen zombies, Jiujiu was not afraid at all. He rushed forward while waving his double swords, chopping, slashing, stabbing, and kicking. In just 1 minute, he killed more than a dozen zombies. At this time, the system voice finally sounded. Congratulations to the host, you have completed the special hidden task, solve Beth's troubles, completely kill the canyon zombies, and reward 5,000 experience, a mechanical dog upgrade blueprint, and a special permission. Reminder, the host's level has been upgraded, and the current level is 11. Strength and physical strength are increased by 5 each, intelligence, spirit, and agility are increased by 1 each, and have been automatically assigned to the attribute panel. Please check the details by yourself. Reminder, all world tasks are completed this time, and the host can return to the main world at any time. Time limit 318 days per 365 days. Hearing the system's prompt, Jiujiu finally laughed happily. Such a smile appeared on the zombies on the ground. If someone drew it, it would be a god-level painting handed down from generation to generation. The motorcycle was still in place. Jiujiu walked back to the motorcycle, got on the motorcycle, started the motorcycle, and returned to the crowd. Beth rushed over with a cheer. Jiujiu could see that there were obvious tears on Beth's joyful face. She stretched out her hands to catch Beth, who threw herself into her arms. Beth could not wait to lift the helmet on Jiujiu's head and kissed Jiujiu's lips. Maggie and the others looked at the two people who were affectionate with a smile on their faces, and their eyes were full of blessings and admiration. After waiting for the two to finish being intimate, under the good-natured laughter of Maggie and the others, everyone returned to the car and headed towards the villa. Back to the villa, Jiujiu and Beth went directly back to the villa, but Maggie and the others went to find Diana and Rick. She told the two people one by one about Jiujiu's killing of zombies in the canyon for several months. Finally, Maggie said, "The tens of thousands of zombies need to be dealt with in time, otherwise it will cause a plague and it will be a big trouble. How to deal with it, I hope you can come up with a specific plan." After that, Maggie and the others turned around and left the office without waiting for the two to answer. After a day of running around, Maggie and the others were really tired. They all wanted to go back early, take a hot bath, and have a good sleep. Watching Maggie and the others leave, Diana and Rick looked at each other for a long time, and Diana said, "I really didn't expect that there would be such a big hidden danger near the villa. It's really thanks to Yi. If it weren't for him. Hey. I can't even imagine the consequences." Rick was also in a complicated mood. To be honest, he disliked Jiujiu the most, just because Jiujiu was so powerful and didn't obey the team's orders, which made him feel threatened by his position as the team leader. But after what happened today, he knew that Jiujiu was no longer a simple person who could be ignored. He was the benefactor of the whole villa and the hero of everyone. Then the two discussed the follow-up matters, and it took more than an hour to make a plan. Jiujiu and Beth were even more tired. It was not until Beth fell asleep that Jiujiu had time to check his panel information. Name, Jiujiu. Age, 16. Occupation, mechanical hunter. Level 11, 3700/10,000. Attributes. Strength, 5. Physical strength, 5. Intelligence, 13. Spirit, 13. Agility, 13. Speed, 21 meters per second. Energy, 1,300, 13 points/min recovery speed. Professional talent skills. 1. Intermediate combat master. 2. Intermediate mechanical master. Pet, mechanical dog, wolf warrior, 1/2. Mount, chasing wind, Batman upgraded motorcycle. Special space, mechanical manufacturing space 1,000 square meters. Drawing, mechanical dog upgrade drawing *1. Special permission, *1. Note, time travel function remains 0 times. Note, the only mainline super god level mission, kill Thanos and his lackeys. 6 cosmic gems are rewarded for successful mission. After closing the attribute panel, Jiujiu couldn't fall asleep. Looking down at Beth, who was tightly wrapped around him like an octopus, Jiujiu felt reluctant. In his mind, he couldn't help but recall everything he had experienced since entering this world. The joy of shooting the first zombie to trigger the hidden mission, the surprise after the wolf warrior was activated, the joy of discovering the true purpose of the trap, the arduous journey of destroying the Salvation Army, and the arduous process of annihilating tens of thousands of zombies in that canyon. When Jiujiu woke up again, it was already past 11 o'clock the next day. No one came to disturb Jiujiu's rest because everyone knew how tired Jiujiu was yesterday. Especially when everyone came to the canyon and saw the dense corpses of zombies in the canyon, everyone couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. For a while, the canyon was full of the hissing sound like a tire leaking. Everyone was very grateful for Jiujiu's efforts at this time. Maybe they would have found this place without Jiujiu, but there was absolutely no way to kill so many zombies. 056 Difficult separation. No matter how it is handled, it will bring unimaginable danger to the villa. Google search reading. Jiujiu no longer paid attention to the affairs of the canyon, and used the remaining more than a month to take Beth out to search for supplies, of course mainly the metal supplies Jiujiu needed. After the battle in the canyon, all his traps were gone. In order not to lose his combat effectiveness in the future, Jiujiu of course had to prepare more metal supplies. The other thing is to find the soul that the mechanical dog needs, so that it can be used to activate the modified mechanical wolf. After the current wolf warrior has been upgraded, its attributes have been greatly improved. Pet name, Wolf Warrior, upgraded version of mechanical dog. Attack power, 1,500 kilograms. Every 150 abilities consumed can sustain combat for 1 hour, and daily activities consume 1 day. Combat characteristics, bite, claw attack, impact, tail sweep, thrust. Innate abilities, detection, vigilance, keen sense of smell. Special ability, absorb solar energy and automatically convert it into required energy and store it in the body to replenish energy consumption at any time. In addition to the modified Wolf Warrior 1 that has been staying outside, there are 2 unactivated Wolf Warriors in the space. Originally, Jiujiu wanted to prepare a few more Wolf Warriors for Beth, but the system told him that Beth was an ordinary person, and being able to control and command a mechanical dog was already cheating the system. It was absolutely impossible to get more than 1. This also made Jiujiu realize again that he and the system were perverted. Thinking about it, besides those truly perverted people, who could control so many mechanical pets like him. This also gave Jiujiu more confidence in defeating Thanos in the future. Finding the soul of a dog creature was not difficult for Jiujiu. It only took him 3 days to find a suitable dog soul. On this day, both werewolves were activated in the villa. Jiujiu only brought out the one prepared for Beth. He found Beth, who was busy in the kitchen. Jiujiu stretched out his hand to protect Beth from behind and put his head on it. On Beth's shoulder, she said affectionately, "My dear, I want to give you another gift, do you want it?" Beth, who was washing the dishes, turned her head and kissed the side of Jiujiu's face, and said softly, "My dear, I like everything you give me." Hee hee. Hearing this, Jiujiu thought and summoned the wolf prepared for Beth. The new wolf walked up to the two of them and gently rubbed the bottom of the metal dog's head against Beth's calf. The sudden touch startled Beth, and she hurriedly looked down, only to see a metal dog about the same size as the wolf warrior, but more beautiful, right next to her legs. Beth suddenly cheered in surprise, turned around, hugged Jiujiu's neck and asked, "My dear, is this the gift you gave me? It's so nice. You have one and I have one, haha. I'm so happy." After saying that, Beth kissed Jiujiu, let go of Jiujiu, squatted down to protect the metal dog's head and looked at it carefully. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Jiujiu understood Beth very well. He forgot about men's behavior after having a pet, and said to Beth, "You can give it a name, and from then on it will protect you until its body collapses." Hearing this, Beth did not hear the deeper meaning of Jiujiu's words. She tilted her head and thought for a while before saying, Okay. Let's call you Long Long." It's the same as your name, haha. Hearing this, Jiujiu couldn't help but feel embarrassed. Of course he knew the English meaning of long, long, didn't it mean a long, long time? This Beth is really a child who won't grow up, so naughty. But Jiujiu felt relieved afterwards. After all, she was going to leave in the future. With Lang Lang accompanying her, Beth wouldn't miss her too much. Thinking of this, Jiujiu remembered that the system had not given Beth the full authority to command Lang Lang, and said to Beth, "My dear, if you want to fully command Lang Lang, you still need a small ceremony. Come." With that said, Jiujiu squatted down and took Beth's hand, gently pressed it on Lang Lang's head, and said to the system in his mind, "System, I want to use special permissions to give Beth full command of Lang Lang." System. Okay, host, grant permissions to Beth. Granting is in progress. Granting completed. Host has lost special permissions once. As soon as the voice fell, Beth suddenly had a magical feeling, as if she had a mysterious connection with Lang Lang in front of her, giving her the feeling that as long as she gave an order, Lang Lang would execute her order. Turning back to look at Jiujiu in disbelief, Beth asked uncertainly, "Uncle, is this true? Lang Lang is my pet." Jiujiu nodded, rubbed Beth's hair lovingly and said, "Yes, from now on, Lang Lang is not only your pet, but also your patron saint. When I am not around you, he will protect you anytime and anywhere. Remember, don't let Lang Lang be hurt too much, otherwise you won't be able to fix it, understand?" Beth still didn't understand the meaning of Jiujiu's words, and snorted proudly and said, "Humph, I won't. Lang Lang is my pet, not my warrior. I won't let him take risks." What can Jiujiu say? Can't say, he can't speak. I can only tell Beth the truth when I am about to leave. More than a month actually passed very quickly, especially for two men and women who love each other deeply. Even if they are together 24 hours a day, it is not too much. Jiujiu also tried his best to meet any request of Beth in this month. He took her to ride Juefeng and drove more than 100 kilometers to see the park. He combed Beth's hair and cooked Chinese food for her. However, Jiujiu was miserable enough. He could only cook 2 otaku dishes, tomato scrambled eggs and egg fried rice. However, even with such simple food, Beth was very satisfied with it and kept praising Jiujiu's cooking skills. Jiujiu was very embarrassed and secretly decided to learn Chinese food when he had time. This day finally came, and Jiujiu had to leave this world. At 11:55 in the evening, after Jiujiu and Beth had their last intimate moment, Jiujiu got up and dressed neatly before turning around and saying to Beth, who looked puzzled, "Beth, please forgive me, I have to leave you." After hearing Jiujiu's words, Beth suddenly stayed on the bed, looking at Jiujiu in disbelief. Jiujiu held back the reluctance and discomfort in his heart, and finally continued. "I am not from this world, my time in this world is about to end, and if I don't leave, I will disappear completely. So, sorry, Beth. I'm leaving. I'm relieved to have Lang Lang accompany you." Speaking of this, Jiujiu also heard the voice of the system sounding. "Host, the time you stay in this world is about to end, please be prepared to return. 10, 9, 8, 1. Chevron_left 057 return to the Marvel Universe." Seeing Lu Meng's body slowly turning into a ball of white light and disappearing in front of her eyes, Beth woke up from her daze and jumped up from the bed. Before throwing the white light, she seemed to want to retain Jiujiu, but unfortunately she did. After a while, he fell to the ground and burst into tears. Google search reading. Taiwan Novel Network. It felt like all the strength in his body had been drained out. He sat down limply on the ground, his tear-stained eyes suddenly became dull. At this time, Lang Lang walked over with all his limbs, like a real pet dog, and gently lay in front of Beth and leaned on her body, as if he wanted to give Beth a support. Feeling the coldness of her body, Beth slowly came back to her senses. Looking at Lang Lang who was clinging to her side, Beth couldn't control it anymore. She hugged Lang Lang's neck and started crying. "Stand up." In Jiujiu's bedroom in the Marvel world, Jiujiu's figure appeared. He raised his eyes and looked around. Jiujiu sat down on the ground in despair. He could no longer suppress the pain in his heart, and felt that his whole heart ached terribly. "What does this feel like?" Jiujiu couldn't describe it, he just felt like he had lost something important. Scenes of getting along with Beth emerged uncontrollably in his mind, and Jiujiu suddenly understood that what he had lost was a deep-rooted relationship, maybe. There's no chance of seeing Beth again. Jiujiu thought truthfully. At this time, Jiujiu also began to reflect on himself. Was he being too irresponsible? Knowing that there would be no result, he still had that kind of relationship with Beth. Was he too irresponsible? Having watched too many American TV and movies, Jiujiu thought that he could be as scumbag as them and could be so casual about relationships. However, in fact, it was due to the Chinese nation's attitude towards relationships that he could not face it so calmly. Leave. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Sitting on the ground, Jiujiu thought a lot, and finally secretly warned himself that it would be better not to have such deep emotional entanglements with people from other worlds again. After more than an hour, Jiujiu stood up, put all the weapons on his body into the space, walked to the bathroom, took off his clothes, and asked the system in his mind as if he just remembered. "System, didn't you say that after completing all the tasks in the mission world, there will be a reward? Where is the reward? Where is it?" "System. The rewards have been distributed in advance. They are the rewards obtained from the special hidden tasks triggered by the host." Hearing this, Jiujiu, who walked into the bathroom and was about to take a good bath, suddenly became inexplicably angry. He twisted the shower head hard to wet his hair and asked angrily. "What? It's actually that reward. Since it's a reward, why do you ask me to kill so many zombies? Don't you know it's very tiring?" "System. Although it's tiring, the host has gained more, hasn't it? Originally there was only a blueprint for upgrading the mechanical dog, but the host also got one more special permission reward, leaving Beth with Lang Lang. Isn't the host still not satisfied?" Hearing this, Jiujiu was stunned for a moment and asked hurriedly. "Are you saying that if I don't trigger that mission, the system will only reward me with a mechanical dog upgrade blueprint, but no special permission reward?" "System. Yes, host." Hearing this, Jiujiu was speechless. What else could he say? "Did you say that the system was unkind and issued one more task to yourself? It's completely unnecessary. On the contrary, he wants to thank the system for giving him that task. At least he left Beth with a mechanical dog to protect her safety, right?" After taking a refreshing bath, Jiujiu seemed to have washed away everything he had experienced in the world of the Walking Dead. He lay down on the bed and fell asleep not long after. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Jiujiu was awakened by the ringing of the alarm clock. He reached out from the quilt in a daze, and after a while of fussing around, he touched the alarm clock. He turned off the alarm clock in annoyance, and Jiujiu turned it off again. Fall asleep in a daze. However, he seemed to have thought of something in his confusion, but he couldn't remember it, so he simply continued to sleep. Half an hour later, I suddenly heard shouts from outside the house. "Hey! Yi, are you still there? I'm Parker. If you are, get up and report to school with me." Hearing the shout, Jiujiu was still a little confused, but he heard the system sound. Daily tasks in this world are triggered. Report to school with Spider-Man Parker, making Parker and the host become true friends who talk about everything. Completion rewards 1000 experience points. Tip: please don't forget your identity as a student and hide it better so that other forces cannot notice the existence of the host prematurely and cause unnecessary trouble. After listening to the system information, Jiujiu finally remembered that the person downstairs was Spider-Man Parker. The two were neighbors and classmates, and they used to go to school together. It's just that Parker hasn't been bitten by a spider yet, and is still a thin student who is often bullied. Thinking of this, Jiujiu got up from the bed, opened the window and waved to Parker downstairs and shouted, "Wait a moment, Parker, I'll be down right away." After saying that, Jiujiu quickly put on his regular clothes, washed up in only 5 minutes, put on his school bag, opened the door and walked out. It was only then that Jiujiu took a closer look at Spider-Man Parker, who was very popular in his previous life. Parker, who is only 172 centimeters tall, is 3 centimeters shorter than himself. He looks very likable, but his body is much thinner than himself. On his young face, he has big eyes and looks almost exactly like Holland. At this time, Parker was rubbing his shoes on the grass on the ground out of boredom. When he saw Jiujiu coming out, he immediately smiled and said, "Yi, you finally came out. I was so bored waiting. How could you forget that today is the day to report? If I hadn't called you, would you not report?" Hearing Parker's words like a string of cannons, Jiujiu was immediately full of black lines, thinking, "It's confirmed, this is the chatterbox Spider-Man in the Avengers, who talks a lot of nonsense." But he said helplessly, "Hey, Parker, my parents just left, I missed them so much that I forgot to report today." Hearing this, Parker suddenly felt embarrassed and said apologetically, "Ah. I forgot, sorry. Yi. Jiujiu said this on purpose, in order to make Parker stop nagging, so he put his arm around Parker's shoulder and said, "Don't be sorry, Parker. I have come out of the tragedy, I am very grateful that you came to call me, really. I think we can not only be good neighbors, but also best friends, right? Parker." Hearing this, Parker was stunned and murmured, "Friends." Parker couldn't help but think of his good friend in the past, Harry's. 058 Parker and #039, Goddess Gwen. Unfortunately, Harry doesn't live here. hx.com. However, Parker became happy in an instant. He was very happy to have a civilian friend like him, so he also reached out and patted Jiujiu's back, who was much stronger than him, and said, "Okay. Yi, I think we can be very good friends. In fact, I don't have many friends. There was a man named Harry Osborn before, but he doesn't live here with us. Yi, I'm very happy that you can be good friends with me, really, you don't know." Hearing Parker start talking again, although he admitted that he was his friend, Jiujiu did not hear the prompt of the task completion. He couldn't help but laugh at himself and thought, "Really? It's not so easy to make Parker recognize himself and become a good friend who can talk about anything." Then he was relieved. After all, there is a long way to go. The future Spider-Man can't escape his palm. After all, Parker is his most easily fooled comrade in the future. Compared with the other people in the Avengers, Parker is obviously more simple. Oh, no, it's easier to get along with Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit. As for how to conceal the true identity of himself and Parker, this is a problem. After all, Jarvis's ability cannot be underestimated. As long as Tony is determined to find out the existence of himself and Parker, it just takes some time. Thinking of Jarvis, Jiujiu thought of artificial intelligence, and Jiujiu couldn't help looking forward to the next world travel in his heart, preferably to get artificial intelligence that is not inferior to Jarvis to fight against Jax's exploration. The two of them walked arm in arm, talking about interesting things during the holidays, all the way to the school bus station. Of course, during this process, Parker was nagging most of the time, and Jiujiu just occasionally interjected a word or two, and the friendship between the two gradually increased unconsciously. The school bus came, the two got on the school bus, found an empty seat and sat down, and the two continued to talk and laugh. Arrived at school, found the teacher to register and paid the tuition, got new books, and walked out of the classroom together. A lot of students have gathered on the playground, and they are chatting about interesting things during the holidays in groups of 3 or 5. In the stands at the edge of the court, a blonde girl was sitting on a stool, flipping through the book in her hand. The sunlight at this time shone through the girl's body. Due to the visual dislocation, the girl looked particularly beautiful. The talkative Parker was stunned. Jiujiu, who had super hearing, seemed to hear. Parker's heartbeat quickened. Looking at this girl carefully, how could Jiujiu not recognize her? She was actually the heroine in the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and Parker's girlfriend Gwen Stacy. Seeing her, Jiujiu couldn't help but curse in his heart. Damn Marvel, is it so soon that I have to deal with Dr. Lizard and Electro? Damn it, I'm not ready yet, okay. Cursing aside, Jiujiu can only accept reality. After all, this world is the Marvel Universe, and it will face at any time endless villain bosses and alien invasions. If you don't want to die early, you should improve your strength as soon as possible. But after thinking about it, I felt something was wrong. Remember that there is no Gwen in Holland's Spider-Man, and there is only one black girl MJ, so how did Gwen appear? After thinking about it carefully, Jiujiu was relieved. This is not just a Spider-Man world, but a real Marvel world. It is normal to change the heroine, isn't it? Compared with the black heroine MJ, this Gwen looks more suitable for Holland, isn't it? Thinking of this, Jiujiu turned his head to look at Parker, who was still looking at Gwen stupidly, and gently bumped Parker with his shoulder, waking Parker up from his daze, and said jokingly, "What's wrong, Parker? Do you like that girl? Hee, if you like her, I suggest you pursue her boldly. Well, I see she doesn't have a boyfriend yet, you still have a great chance." Hearing this, Parker immediately felt embarrassed, scratched his hair with his hand, smiled shyly and asked, Are you serious? Will she like me? After all, I am not strong, nor rich, that. Seeing that the chatterbox Parker became shy and unconfident, Jiujiu reached out and patted him on the back to encourage him. Believe in yourself, Parker. You have very good grades, and you can definitely get into a prestigious university. Your future will definitely not be worse than any successful person. Also, I think that girl is a good student like you, and she should like boys who are good at studying. Believe me, she is not such a superficial girl. I will help you chase her, Parker. Hearing this, Parker looked at Jiujiu with gratitude, not only because Jiujiu encouraged her, but also because Jiujiu said that he would help him to pursue her. Seeing Parker's inexplicable gratitude, Jiujiu decided to help him to the end. She put her arm around his shoulders and walked towards Gwen with the confused Parker, preparing to get to know Gwen first and lay a good foundation for getting along with her in the future. At this moment, 2 boys rushed over to the court. The one in front was as thin as Parker, and the one behind was a big boy with short hair. Well, he looked very strong. Jiujiu looked and saw that it was an acquaintance, the boy Flexi from the school basketball team who had beaten Parker. The thin boy was obviously running away. When he ran in front of Jiujiu and the others, he couldn't stop and bumped into Parker. He didn't hit Jiujiu and the others, but fell to the ground. Parker was a very compassionate and righteous person. He immediately reached out to help the boy who fell up, and then looked at the boy who was chasing him and asked loudly, "Hey! Flexi, what are you doing? Are you bullying your weaker classmates again?" Parker's words immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding students, including Gwen, who was sitting on a stool reading a book. The surrounding students saw that Flexi was bullying again, and someone dared to question him. They immediately knew that there was something interesting to watch, and they all surrounded him. Flexi, who was questioned by Parker, stopped in front of Jiujiu and the other 2, shrugged his shoulders and said with a funny expression, What? Parker. Do you want to help this kid? After that, he looked at the strong Jiujiu provocatively and added. You. Yi. A cowardly Chinese. Originally, he wanted to wait until Parker was beaten, and then he would teach Flexi a lesson, so as to gain Parker's gratitude and increase his favorability. But he was inexplicably targeted by Flexi, and Jiujiu didn't wait any longer, thinking. I can't deal with those big bosses now, but can't I deal with you as a small role? Since you like to be abused, then I will fulfill your wish, so that Parker can know how powerful his buddy is earlier. 059 A little bit of limelight. Thinking of this, Jiujiu stretched out his hand to stop Parker, who was about to rush forward to argue with Flashy, and said to Flashy. Flash, we have an old saying in China, don't bully people who are weaker than you because you think you are strong. This is a very cowardly sign. I will give it to you now. I don't like to beat up people casually, but I like to beat up people who are more arrogant than me. Hearing this, the students around him suddenly burst into laughter. They didn't know whether they were laughing at France for bullying the weak, or at Jiujiu for overestimating his abilities. Google search reading. In short, whether he was laughed at by everyone or angry at Jiujiu's words, Flazy was irritated, his face suddenly turned red, and he shouted. Teach me a lesson. Are you talking nonsense, boy? Haha, it's really funny. A cowardly Chinese guy actually mocked me for bullying. Then come on, let's have a fight. Let's see whether I teach you a lesson or you are so brave. Teach me a lesson, little Chinese. I'm going to knock you down and stuff your head into the toilet. As he spoke, Flazy took a step forward and punched Jiujiu on the cheek. Jiujiu's fighting experience is much better than that of Flashy, a boy who has not yet left school. Even the king of special forces will not give in to him. The skills of an intermediate combat master allowed him to see at a glance several obvious loopholes in Flashy's punches. He only leaned back slightly to avoid Flashy's heavy punch. None of them dared to fight back, fearing that he would inflict internal injuries on Flazy. After all, Jiujiu's current strength and constitution were both 5, but then when Flazy was unable to react, he moved forward and used his shoulders. A slight bump on his open chest knocked Flazy's strong body backwards and flew 3 meters away, and fell heavily to the ground. The students who were watching suddenly let out an exclamation of wow, and many students even shouted. Oh, I'll choke you to death Kung Fu. Flashy was knocked to the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. He felt as if his chest had been hit by a truck and his breathing became unsmooth. At this time, he was afraid. To be honest, he was just a student who didn't study hard, not even a gangster. It was okay to bully students who were weaker than him, but when he really met someone stronger than him, his nature it was exposed. Yes, it is the nature of bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Seeing the obvious look of fear on his face, Jiujiu knew that he did not dare to take action again, so he stood in front of him, looked at Flazy condescendingly and said. A person's strength is not reflected by bullying others, but by the strength of one's heart, which means challenging evil people who are stronger than oneself. Flashy, I don't want to cause trouble but I am never afraid of it. I hope you can restrain yourself a little in the future. Have a good temper and get along well with your classmates. After all, you have been classmates for a few years, and you don't want to leave a bad impression on your classmates as someone who bullies others with a gun. After speaking, Jiujiu waved to the surrounding students and said. Okay, everyone. The excitement here is over, let's all disperse. After saying that, the students who were watching saw that there was no excitement left, and they immediately dispersed while talking excitedly. But he didn't know that after today's incident, Jiujiu had become a popular figure in the school. The thin boy also thanked Jiujiu and Parker and left in a hurry. Parker's eyes shone brightly, he looked at Jiujiu and said excitedly. Is it Chinese Kung Fu? Yi. It's so powerful. It was just one move, and he knocked down the strong Flashy with just one move. Haha. I have a Kung Fu master as a friend. I'm so happy. Haha. Seeing that Parker was so excited that he forgot about his goddess, Jiujiu shrugged helplessly and said. Don't get excited, Parker, this is just a simple fighting skill, nothing special. If you are interested, I can also teach you. Hey, buddy, don't get excited, don't you want to get to know your goddess? Hearing this, Parker blinked hard at Jiujiu, as if he wanted to remind Jiujiu of something. Jiujiu asked unclearly. What's wrong, Parker? Is there something wrong with your eyes? Just after I finished speaking, I heard a female voice behind me say. Who's goddess? Hearing this, Jiujiu was stunned for a moment, and slowly turned around, only to see Gwen holding a book in her arms, already standing behind the two of them, looking at them with a warm smile. Jiujiu is no longer the first brother. When he sees Parker's goddess coming over on his own initiative, he naturally wants to help Parker. Oh, hello. What I just said is the goddess in Parker's heart, you. Can I ask my friend, what is your name? Beautiful lady. Hearing this, Gwen suddenly laughed happily, stretched out her right hand after laughing, and introduced Jiujiu and the two generously. Hello, my name is Gwen, Gwen Stacy. Nice to meet you. What are your names? Parker, who was usually talkative, became shy when the goddess was in front of her and didn't even dare to speak. Jiujiu had no choice but to come forward again, took Parker's right hand and held it with Gwen's outstretched hand and said. Hello, Gwen. I am Jiujiu, you can call me Yi. This is my best friend and good friend, named Parker, Peter Parker. After saying that, he didn't forget to press their hands together, shake them and said. You guys can get to know each other well. Oh, I forgot to mention that my friend is also a top student. He's very powerful. Hearing this, Gwen and Parker were both stunned and repeated, a top student. Hearing the two repeating his words, Jiujiu was also stunned. He realized that he had used the popular term in his previous life, so he explained. Oh, Shiweba means the top student, the best one. After saying that, Jiujiu didn't want to be a light bulb here, so he said to the two. By the way, you guys chat, I have something to do, so I'll leave first. Bye. After saying that, Jiujiu hurriedly left the two and ran straight out of the school. Watching Jiujiu leaving, Gwen smiled and pulled her hand out of Parker's hand, saying to Parker. Hee hee, your friend is really interesting, you are so lucky to have such a friend who is willing to help you. Hearing this, Parker felt a sense of loss when he noticed Gwen's hand leaving his palm, and smiled awkwardly and said. Yes, I am very lucky to have a friend like Yi. After saying that, Parker didn't know what to say, but he was very grateful to Jiujiu in his heart. Not only did he help him to get down from Flexi, so that he would not be beaten and embarrassed in front of the goddess, but he also created an opportunity for himself to meet Gwen. Jiujiu, who left school, was walking towards home, thinking in his mind how to get a large sum of money to go to Wakanda to buy vibranium. But he forgot that Wakanda was far away in Africa and was blocked by a mysterious shield, so ordinary people couldn't find it at all. $060 inspiration from robbery. Without a good opportunity, he is destined to miss vibranium. When thinking about making money, Jiujiu thought of the many gold, diamond, and jewelry collected in space and in the world of the Walking Dead. Thinking that the jewelry had not yet been turned into cash, Jiujiu began to have a headache again. He was also wishful thinking. When he was in the world of the Walking Dead, he thought of getting more of these things, but he didn't expect that these things had no provenance. How to take action became a problem that troubled him. When looking for an auction house, there is no proof that the auction house dares to accept the order. Taiwan Novel Network. Looking for an underground organization to sell him, he is only a 16-year-old boy, and he is not afraid of people taking advantage of him. Well, being young is a big problem. At this moment, the system sound suddenly sounded in Jiujiu's mind. The host triggers a mission in the main world, obtain 50 million meters of gold to purchase vibranium, and receive 1,000 experience points as a reward. After hearing the system prompts, Jiujiu couldn't help but feel dizzy. Not to mention that the 50 million yuan to buy vibranium was a sky-high price. He didn't even know how much vibranium 50 million could buy. If you want to buy enough vibranium to transform Wolf Warrior, it will take even more. Even if you exchange the things in the space for cash, it is still far behind. Thinking of this, Jiujiu couldn't help but sighed secretly in his heart. Hey! It's so hard for me. Where can I find so much money? Continuing to walk forward, when passing through a secluded alleyway, he was suddenly blocked by several young black men. One of the black men looked at Jiujiu mockingly and said nonchalantly. Hey, Asian boy, you are really unlucky to meet us, haha. Take out all the money you have. Maybe we are in a good mood and won't beat you up after getting the money. Otherwise, we will give you a good beating. I'll beat you up and take the money out of your pocket. How about you take it out yourself, or do we beat you until you take it out?" Hearing this, Jiujiu suddenly had a flash of inspiration and thought of something that many time travel seniors love to do, which was robbery. Ahem, no, it's robbing the rich to give to the poor. Yes, it's robbing the rich to give to the poor. The targets are these gangsters who can be found everywhere in the United States. Of course, at first glance, Jiujiu could tell that the few black young men in front of him were not gang members, but just ordinary gangsters. Thanks to these gangsters for providing him with inspiration, Jiujiu faced several black youths surrounding him and decided to beat them up, well, just lightly, to thank them. So, Jiujiu spread his hands and smiled at several black youths and said, "Wow, robbery. I'm so lucky to have encountered such a robbery, so, now it's me." After saying that, Jiujiu put away the smile on his face and said seriously, "For robbery, take out all the cash you have, or I will beat you until your mother doesn't recognize you." Hearing this, several black youths were stunned for a moment, and then they reacted and became angry. One of the tallest and largest black men cursed, "Shit," and punched Jiujiu. Jiujiu had been prepared for a long time. When he saw the big man punching him, he rushed out fiercely. With a flick of his head during the sprint, he let go of the big man's punch. He raised his knees and hit the big man with a knee on the lower abdomen of a tall man. With a cry of pain, the big man's tall and strong body suddenly bent into the shape of a prawn. He retracted his fist, held his lower abdomen with both hands, and stumbled to the ground. Jiujiu didn't have the habit of holding back his hands. He punched to seal the eyes, hammered the nose, swept the legs, and neatly knocked all the black youths to the ground. Then he stepped on the big man who made the first move and said harshly to several black youths, "Take the money, or I'll beat you until you take out all the money." Jiujiu's sexy moves immediately shocked several black youths, and they were unable to resist at all. They all endured the pain in their bodies and quickly took out all the things in their pockets. Jiujiu took a look at it. It was really terrible. There were a few obviously worthless mobile phones, a handful of scattered banknotes mixed with many coins, and a few fruit knives. Jiujiu was speechless. This little money is only more than 20 meters in total. What is enough for it? Jiujiu suddenly lost interest in continuing to rob them. He withdrew his foot in a wan manner, kicked the big man and cursed. "It's really a disgrace to society. With such a small amount of money, I'm too embarrassed to take it from you. Just take your meager possessions and get out." Hearing this, several black youths hurriedly grabbed the broken pieces on the ground as if they were receiving amnesty, and hurried out of the alley without daring to say anything. After the black men ran away, Jiujiu continued walking while recalling in his mind which gangs in the Marvel world were powerful and had a lot of cash. After thinking about it, I seem to only think of one, that is, an important figure who has appeared in Spider-Man, Daredevil, Punisher, and X-Men, Wilson Grant Fisk, also known as Hell the Master of the Kitchen, Kingpin. This man's life could be made into a TV series. It is a miracle that he survived after being beaten by many superheroes. This is because the American heroes are so law-abiding that they only defeated him and sent him to prison, but they did not worry about his revenge. Jiujiu sneered at this. A woman's kindness would not work for Jiujiu. Don't forget that Jiujiu is a ruthless person who kills people in the world of The Walking Dead. Since he decided to take Kingpin as the first mover, Jiujiu would never give Kingpin the opportunity to seek revenge on him afterwards. When Jiujiu went to rob Kingpin, he would naturally do a good job of disguise and would not give Kingpin the opportunity to counterattack. You know, the United States is a country where money is supreme. As long as there is money, all kinds of strange and incredible things will happen. Thinking all the way about how to deal with the Kingpin group, when Jiujiu returned home, it was already noon. He missed lunch, so Jiujiu just bought 3 hot dogs outside to fill his stomach, and then buried his head back in the bedroom to prepare for the action. The weapon is naturally a mechanical crossbow, and silence is the biggest reliance. After all, if you want to sneak into Kingpin's lair, you have to enter quietly, and don't shoot. The second is the camouflage that covers the body. The helmet mask is very simple. The helmet that comes with the Mount Jiujiu is the best camouflage. It is not only cool but also concealed enough. No matter how powerful the scanning equipment is, it cannot scan Jiujiu's face under the helmet. Of course, the clothes on the body should be as clean and neat as possible. As for wearing a set of clothes like a superhero in the movie, it is not necessary for Jiujiu. Slightly loose sportswear will do. The advantage of this is that it can be bought everywhere and is not easy to be found by those dog-like FBI and S.H.I.E.L.D. 061 Searching for Daredevil mat. Everything was ready. Looking at the 30 traps stored in the space, Jiujiu continued to use metal and energy to create new traps. After a busy afternoon, Jiujiu didn't even see Parker coming to find him. He felt funny in his heart. Sure enough, little boys are the kind of people who lose their humanity when they have sex with the opposite sex. With nothing to do, Jiujiu turned on the computer and started to search for information about Gene Bing Group on the internet. Unfortunately, there is not much information about Gene Bing on the ordinary internet. There is only one real name of Gene Bing, which ambiguously points out that Gene Bing is the actual controller of Hell's Kitchen and has several gangsters under him. The other information is not true or false and cannot be used as a basis. This gave Jiujiu a headache. He knew the specific location of the building where Gene Bing Group was located from the internet, but if he just broke into the building, even if he killed Gene Bing, he might not get what he wanted most. Just think about it, whether it is the transaction of pornography, gambling, drugs, or other businesses, cash cannot be left in the building. The biggest possibility is that there is some cash in the building, which is only about 1 or 2 million at most, and more will continue to remain in the hands of those gangsters as working capital. And to find those places, it is not easy to investigate in a day or two. Thinking of investigation, Jiujiu thought of another influential figure in Hell's Kitchen, that is, Matt, the blind lawyer known as Daredevil. As for the person who knows the Kingpin gang best, it must be Matt. After all, Kingpin was defeated and sent to prison by him. But this buddy is also stubborn. He obviously knocked down the strong and powerful Kingpin, but he didn't kill him. He is also mentally ill. Jiujiu is certainly not a murderer, but for those evil people who cannot be reformed, he will naturally kill them all. The purpose of doing this is not only to stop more good people from being persecuted, but also to avoid unnecessary trouble for himself. Thinking of this, Jiujiu prepared to go to Hell's Kitchen to find the church where Matt lives so as to track his actions. Only by following him can he find the specific location of those gangsters. After putting on casual clothes, Jiujiu went out and hailed a taxi, driving all the way to Hell's Kitchen. The driver was a fat black man. Not to mention that in almost all movies, black taxi drivers are so talkative. As soon as he got in the taxi, the black guy started chatting. Hi. Sir. Asian. Chinese, Korean, or Japanese? Hearing this, Jiujiu looked around and answered absent-mindedly. Chinese. Oh. Chinese. So you must know Chinese Kung Fu. You look great, right? No. I'm still a student. Oh, that's a pity. I thought I pulled a very powerful Chinese Kung Fu boy. By the way, what are you doing in Hell's Kitchen? That place is not a place for a student like you to go. Hearing this, Jiujiu's heart moved, thinking. Does this black driver know something about Hell's Kitchen? So he pretended to be ignorant and surprised and asked. Ah. Is that so? I went to see a friend. He lives there. Sir, can you tell me something about Hell's Kitchen? Hearing this, it seemed as if he had touched his pride, and he immediately opened up and popularized the knowledge of Hell's Kitchen to Jiujiu. The earliest Hell's Kitchen was just a slum, where people were poor people without jobs or even homeless. Naturally, such an environment would give birth to many crimes. There were streetwalkers, robbers, and thieves everywhere, and they tried every means to get money in exchange for drugs that could paralyze them. Over time, under this, it became the cradle of gangs. They controlled these people through various means and made money for them. You can put the most evil things in the world in Hell's Kitchen. Although it is the territory of the gangs also give ordinary people more protection, at least ordinary people can live. And those gangs are said to be controlled by a man named Gene Bing. He made the rules of Hell's Kitchen. Even government officials have dealings with him. Even the police and the FBI can't do anything to him. It can be said that he is the king of Hell's Kitchen, the real uncrowned king. After listening to the driver's introduction, Jiujiu was not afraid at all, but very excited. Because he knew that he had found the right place, the king of a block, so how much money he had in his hands. As for the fact that there are many gangs there and it is very dangerous, is it a problem for Jiujiu? Listening to the black driver bragging all the way, he finally came to 34th Street on the west bank of Manhattan. After paying and getting off the car, walking across 34th Street, the difference between the two sides suddenly became obvious. The state of the 34th District looked normal, but after crossing 34th Street and entering Hell's Kitchen, the eyes of the people around became playful. Almost everyone looked at Jiujiu as if he was looking at a fat sheep. Jiujiu was fearless, with his hands in his trouser pockets, walking leisurely all the way, looking for the only church in this district. Because he was not familiar with the area, Jiujiu did not walk in those secluded alleys, so naturally he did not encounter so many troubles. On the way, when passing a cafe, I saw two familiar people sitting at a table facing the street and drinking coffee. Jiujiu secretly said, "What good luck, I found Matt as soon as I arrived." At the mobile vendor across the street, Jiujiu bought a bottle of drink and waited while drinking the drink. Not long after, it was obviously the end of the leisure time after get off work. Matt said goodbye to his partner and walked out alone with his blind man's stick, which was also his weapon. Jiujiu didn't dare to follow too closely, because Matt's special ability was to perceive the surrounding environment and people through sound imaging. After following Matt for a few blocks from a distance, he saw a white church from a distance, and Jiujiu turned and left here. It was still early, and Matt would have to wait until night before he would put on his exclusive equipment and go out to do justice. After leaving Hell's Kitchen, he found a place in Block 34 to rest for a few hours. It was just getting dark. Jiujiu avoided the surrounding cameras and changed into his own equipment in a secluded corner. He put on a complete set of sportswear, a helmet, and a hood on his head, and walked towards Hell's Kitchen. He came to the outside of the church, found a place where he could see the whole view of the church, and waited quietly. Not long after waiting, around 9 o'clock, the wall on the roof of the church suddenly opened, and a man in a tight red shirt walked out. 062 Wolf Warrior and hashtag 039's brilliant appearance shocked Daredevil. Needless to say, this is Daredevil Matt. Obviously, Matt had determined his goal and started running on the roof without hesitation. This gave Jiujiu a little headache. Even though Matt was blind, running on the roof was even more powerful than a special forces soldier. Fortunately, Jiujiu's current physical fitness is 5, and he can still keep up. Running on the roof is just parkour, and it can't be difficult for Jiujiu. After following Matt for half an hour, he entered a secluded alley. Jiujiu didn't notice anything unusual and hurriedly followed him in. As soon as he entered the alley, a black shadow hit Jiujiu's head. The roar of the wind made Jiujiu's scalp numb. It was obvious that the power on the stick was not weak at all. Jiujiu reacted quickly and immediately ducked to dodge the stick. As soon as he dodged, he noticed that a stick under him quickly swept towards the ground. Jiujiu knew that the opponent had taken the advantage. If he continued to hide, he would have to meet it. Endless attacks. So he simply gritted his teeth and prepared to use the 5 system to resist the opponent's leg sweep in exchange for a chance to counterattack. He squatted into a horse stance and shifted his weight to his feet. There was a bang sound of physical impact. Jiujiu's body remained motionless, but Matt's body staggered. The huge rebound force made him almost sit down on the ground. Next, the initiative was exchanged, and Jiujiu also started his violent fist and kick attack. Even Matt, who had special abilities, couldn't bear this attack. If you think about it, you will know that the powerful Kingpin in the movie can beat Matt to the ground, let alone Jiujiu, who only has a physical strength of 650 kilograms and a blow force of nearly 1,300 kilograms. Although Matt resisted every attack from Jiujiu, his arms and body were still painfully beaten by Jiujiu. In the end, he crossed his hands to block Jiujiu's straight punch, and his body was unable to bear the strength and was knocked back 2 meters away. Tay, while shaking his hands to relieve the pain, said, "Stop. You win. I can't beat you. Tell me. You followed me in the afternoon and again in the evening. Do you have any intention?" Hearing this, Jiujiu couldn't help but feel dumb and said in his heart, "You really can't underestimate anyone in the Marvel world." Even Matt, whose strength is far inferior to everyone in the Avengers, can detect his tracking, so people like Tony, Black Widow, and Hawkeye have to be even more careful. In fact, this is indeed the case. Although the former is an ordinary person, it is still easy to find his traces with the help of the steel suit and artificial intelligence Jarvis. The latter is also like Captain America, her body has been strengthened and she is an elite agent. It is not easy to track her. As for Hawkeye, although he is the most ordinary person in the Avengers, he has killed no less people than those villains. As an agent, he is not a simple person. After thinking so much, it was just a second thought. Jiujiu shrugged and said, "Hello Daredevil. You can call me Ian, it's a code name. My purpose of following you is very simple. I'm going to deal with Kingpin's gang. But I am an outsider after all, and I don't know much about this place. Many. But you are different. You have been here for more than 20 years. Only you are the most familiar with the gangster strongholds, so you know it." Hearing that, although Matt had no intention of continuing the fight, he still looked at Jiujiu warily and asked doubtfully, "Deal with Bin? Haha, Bin is not that easy to deal with. Young man, you are too naive. Don't think that you can easily use Bin's power because you have some strength. In fact, even I can't find him evidence of his crime." Hearing this, Jiujiu shook his head nonchalantly and said, "Of course I know it's not easy to find evidence of Bin's crime, but as long as all his gang strongholds are destroyed, sooner or later he will jump over the wall and expose his feet." Having said this, Jiujiu paused and said in a more serious tone, "Also, please pay attention. I am not here to cooperate with you. I just need you to provide me with the specific location information of those gangs and the content of their transactions. I will find them one by one and clean them out. So." Jiujiu took a deep breath and continued, "Please tell me this information and I will send them to another place. Thank you." Hearing this, Matt instantly felt offended. He really didn't expect why the young man in front of him was so confident that he couldn't even look down on himself, the famous Daredevil in Hell's Kitchen. It wasn't that he didn't want to tell Jiujiu this information, it was just that he couldn't bear to see this young man who had the same sense of justice as him go to die, but he had to do something, so Matt pondered for a moment and said, "Okay. Justice always needs more people to maintain it. I can help you, but you have to let me see your strength before I will consider telling you all this information." Ian, haha. Very interesting, my code name, let's call you that. Having said this, Matt continued in a serious tone. "There is an opportunity tonight. I got information that a gang under Kingpin responsible for human trafficking will escort a group of women at the dock to be sold to other places. Let me see your strength, Ian. I will take you go, intercept them and rescue the girls who were captured." Hearing this, Jiujiu immediately understood what Matt meant. Wasn't he afraid that he was not strong enough and wanted to see his performance? No problem, let alone dealing with a gang that trafficked in human beings, even if it was a gang that trafficked in arms, Jiujiu was confident that he could destroy them. So, Jiujiu stretched out his hand and said to Matt, "Okay. Let's go now. I'll show you my strength." Hearing this, Matt smiled under his mask, stretched out his hand and shook Jiujiu's hand tightly, and then the two of them quickly shuttled through the alleys and roofs one after the other. When they arrived at the dock, it was already 11 o'clock in the evening. The dock was quiet, and it seemed that there was no one. Jiujiu was worried. Not being able to see didn't mean there was no one. He summoned Wolf Warrior number 1 and Wolf Warrior number 2 from the pet space and gave the order. "Search the entire dock, find the hidden people, monitor them and wait for my order." After the order was given, Wolf Warrior number 1 and Wolf Warrior number 2 immediately rushed out from the left and right. Although they were metal bodies, they did not make any sound and quickly disappeared into the night. Sensing the two creatures that suddenly appeared, Matt opened his mouth wide and his breathing became a little faster. After a while, he sighed. "Hidden. I really underestimated you. Not only do you have extraordinary skills, but you also have such magical abilities. I believe you can deal with all of Kingpin's forces. After this operation, I will tell you everything I know." 063 The first attack on Jinbing Group. Jiujiu smiled casually, hid on the container with Matt, and waited quietly. Diamond suit, Google search and read. After a while, he learned from Wolf Warriors 1 and 2 that there were indeed more than a dozen people hiding here. Although he did not see any weapons in their hands, Jiujiu knew that they were gangsters under Kingpin, and they must have hidden weapons on their bodies. There are weapons. Consciously informing Wolf Warrior to monitor them, Jiujiu lowered his voice and said to Matt. There are indeed others here. I think we are in the right place. I will take action when they make a deal later. Daredevil, you can be a spectator for a while and see how I deal with them. Taiwan Novel Network. Hearing this, Matt immediately cursed in his heart and said in his heart. This person is so confident. One person has to deal with people from both sides of the transaction, not just one or two people but dozens of people. I want to see why you are so confident. Obviously, he forgot that Jiujiu was not alone, but also had two high-tech mechanical dog pets. After waiting for another half an hour, there was a faint sound of a motor on the sea outside the pier, and a light shone in the direction of the pier. After turning on and off several times, the same code signal was played on the pier. Then, the sound of the motor gradually approached the pier, and a fishing boat drove over. A dozen figures walked out of the pier and greeted the dozen or so people who came off the fishing boat and looked Asian. After the two parties met, the two leaders hugged each other, talked and laughed for a while, and then walked towards the container at the dock together. Jiujiu also took action at this time, jumping and moving lightly on the container, approaching the group of people quickly and silently. Not long after, we arrived 100 meters away from the group of people and lay down on the containers. Looking at the people below, someone opened the doors of 3 containers, and the suppressed screams and cries of women came from inside. Then a man's unbridled laughter came from below. The leader who came off the fishing boat waved, and someone brought a bag. In front of everyone, he opened the bag and revealed a bundle of rice gold inside. Seeing the cash appear, Jiujiu smiled silently. In fact, it was difficult for him to understand why Kingpin would let them use cash for transactions like these. It was so arrogant to say it was not safe. However, who cares about his special hobby? Isn't cash transaction cheaper for Jiujiu? The next moment, Jiujiu immediately took action, lying on the container. Jiujiu shot a crossbow arrow without hesitation, hitting the person who was pulling up the money bag with one shot in the head. Then, Wolf Warriors 1 and 2 also jumped down from the container and attacked the group of human trafficking gangsters from front to back. Being suddenly attacked, this group of people suddenly panicked. Many people pulled out pistols from their waists and started shooting at the 2 Wolf Warriors. Unfortunately, the pistol bullets did not even leave an obvious bullet mark on the upgraded Wolf Warriors. Can't stay. The bullet that hit Wolf Warrior's body left a trail of sparks and then ricocheted to the ground, leaving only a shallow white mark on Wolf Warrior's metal body. Jiujiu simply let the 2 werewolves kill these gangsters, and the mechanical crossbow in his hand kept shooting all the people who tried to take away the money bag. Although Matt couldn't see it, the battle situation was clearly displayed in his mind. Seeing Jiujiu slaughtering these people without any scruples, to be honest, Matt felt very conflicted. He hated these criminal traffickers, but as a law student, he always wanted to send them to prison to prevent them from committing crimes. As for killing people randomly, Matt is not willing to do it, nor is he willing to see others do it. But he had nothing to say to Jiujiu, and he had no position to ask Jiujiu what to do. He understood that even if he wanted to stop him, he couldn't. Not to mention that he couldn't beat Jiujiu at all. He couldn't deal with those 2 extremely ferocious creatures. Even if he didn't tell Jiujiu the information about Kingpin's criminal group, it would not be possible to indirectly prevent Jiujiu from killing people for long, and Jiujiu would find out sooner or later. Many people will still die by then, and he doesn't want to see that result, but he can try to prevent those who don't deserve to die from dying in Jiujiu's hands. Yes, he could tell Jiujiu the location of the gang headquarters and ask Jiujiu to kill the gang leaders, and then the other ordinary gang members would be freed from the fate of death. Jiujiu didn't know yet, but at this moment Matt had already thought so much. In order to prevent too many people from dying in his own hands, he simply let him go directly to the gang leaders who robbed the rich and helped the poor in Huanglong. Even if he knew that Jiujiu, it doesn't matter. His own purpose is to rob the rich and help the poor gang leaders and complete the system's tasks. It doesn't matter whether those gangsters die or not. There is no need to elaborate on the battle. It is really lackluster to deal with these gangsters who are not even soldiers. Until all these people were dead, Jiujiu asked Matt to rescue the kidnapped women. He walked to the money bag, put the money bag into the space, and watched Matt take out the gangster's mobile phone to call the police. The people left the dock. Under the leadership of Matt, they avoided the cameras on the street and returned to Matt's home. Jiujiu still did not take off the helmet on his head, and even did not take off the hood of his sportswear. Instead, he waited for Matt to mark the location of the Hell's Kitchen gang on a map according to Matt's description, and also recorded the key points of Matt's description. Finally, Jiujiu thanked Matt lightly and said goodbye to Matt. Matt looked at Jiujiu, who was leaving, and wanted to say to Jiujiu, "Hidden, can you notify me before you act? I also want to go with you." Unfortunately, seeing that Jiujiu had no intention of staying and leaving, Matt had to hold back the words. However, Matt was very curious about Jiujiu and wanted to know Jiujiu's true identity in reality. After leaving Hell's Kitchen, avoiding the camera and finding a place without a camera, he changed his clothes, walked onto the street and hailed a taxi. It was already past 1 o'clock in the morning when he returned home. He didn't even have time to check how much cash was in the bag. Jiujiu simply washed up and went to bed. What Jiujiu didn't know was that while he was sleeping in bed, the police station in Hell's Kitchen was in a mess. Based on the portrait drawn by the witnesses, the police felt overwhelmed and had no clue at all. Everyone knew about Daredevil, but they just couldn't find Matt himself. After all, no one could connect a superhero with strong skills and agility with a blind lawyer. And the other one made everyone find no clues. According to their description, the two metal dogs attacked the gangsters. 064 Parker and #039's invitation. But the person commanding them was a man wearing cheap sportswear that could be bought anywhere. Not only did he have a hood on his head, he even seemed to have a mask in the hood. How could they check this? What's more, except for the two people captured by the camera outside the pier, there was no trace of the two people. In the Kingpin building, Kingpin was angrily smashing things in the office with his all-metal crutch. He smashed computers, ashtrays, and fish tanks to pieces in anger, shouting "shit, damn," and other curse words while smashing them. He was not heartbroken about the little cash and goods he had lost. What he was angry about was that someone dared to attack his business. This was provocation and disregard for him. This was something he couldn't stand after becoming the king of Hell's Kitchen. After venting his anger, Kingpin ordered Bullseye to come back and find Daredevil, the men who killed him, and the hooded men who took his money. They must capture these two people alive and lock them up, torture them until they have finished venting their anger, and then kill them by chopping off their hands and feet. Taiwan Novel Network. They even released a bounty mission at no expense. Anyone who provides true information can receive a cash bonus of up to 100,000 meters in gold. Kingpin's move immediately made the entire Hell's Kitchen gangsters excited and busy. How many people were asking who Daredevil was? Who is the hooded man? Jiujiu, who was sleeping soundly, had no idea that just now, due to Jean Bin's actions, a new world hidden mission was triggered. The host triggers the world's hidden mission 1, eradicate the Jean Bin group, and the reward is 1,000 experience and 50 million in cash. Also because Jiujiu was too asleep and didn't hear the system information at all, Jiujiu had been struggling with the task of raising cash to purchase the first batch of vibranium. In fact, even if Jiujiu could get cash from Jean Bin group, he would not be able to collect the 50 million cash required for the task. It was not until after completing the mission that Jiujiu learned about the result from the mission reward, which made him regretful and hammered his head. He secretly cursed himself for being stupid. Why did he get used to looking at the system panel information? He wasted so much time in vain, dealing with Kingpin's gangsters. Wouldn't it be enough to complete the task by directly destroying Kingpin's group building? In fact, Jiujiu also thought too much. If he didn't destroy all Jean Bing's gangs, even if he killed Jean Bing, the system would still not recognize that he had completed the system task. When he was woken up by the alarm clock the next day, Jiujiu was no longer confused this time. He knew that he still had to go to school and the task of becoming friends with Parker was not completed yet. It was not the time for him to drop out of school yet. Yes, Jiujiu planned to drop out of school. He had struggled to finish college in his previous life. Although he had no achievements, he really didn't want to study anymore. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. He had to go to school and stay bored during the day, go out to rob the rich and give to the poor at night, and travel around the world once a month. His energy simply couldn't cope with it. If there hadn't been another mission for Parker, he would have stopped going to school to waste time. Just after washing up and eating a sandwich in a hurry, I heard Parker calling me downstairs. Jiujiu picked up his school bag and went out, hugged Parker, and the two walked to the school bus stop arm in arm, talking and laughing. This time, it was Jiujiu who kept asking, "How is the progress of Parker and Gwen?" When asked about his relationship, Parker, who was usually talkative, became unusually shy. He was embarrassed to tell Jiujiu in detail about his relationship with Gwen. It was only from the information revealed in Parker's hesitant words that Jiujiu understood that this guy was really a coward. Yesterday afternoon, he actually just sent Gwen home, left each other's contact information, and then came back alone. This left Jiujiu speechless. What a rare opportunity. He didn't even invite Gwen to go to the movies, drink coffee, or go to the park. It's true. But Jiujiu also figured it out. It was because of Parker's shyness about feelings that Gwen took the initiative to confess his love to Parker, which brought the two of them together. But it was because of the death of Gwen's father that some unnecessary hardships occurred between the two of them. School life is really boring for Jiujiu. Sitting next to the window, Jiujiu lay on the desk and looked at the bright sunshine outside the window. His ears did not listen to what the teacher said at all. What he was thinking about was how to get more money from Kingpin. He even thought of, or looked for an opportunity to sell off all the gold, diamonds, and jewelry in the space in exchange for a large amount of cash. Jiujiu never thought about sneaking into Wakanda quietly and using space to steal vibranium ore. Firstly, Black Panther's Wakanda combat effectiveness and technology are very good, and they will also be the main combat effectiveness against Thanos' army in the future. There is no need to offend them. Secondly, Jiujiu also wants to establish a good friendship with Wakanda. After all, Wakanda is easier for Jiujiu to trust them than S.H.I.E.L.D., which has clear political goals. After finally getting through the day's study time, at 3:20 in the afternoon, Jiujiu rushed home alone impatiently. As for Parker, Jiujiu reminded him that he should always be with Gwen and use all available time to cultivate a relationship with Gwen, so that his relationship with Gwen could quickly heat up and become boyfriend and girlfriend. After all, there is a long way to go to be friends with Parker, but his mission is urgent. The sooner he gets the vibranium, the faster Jiujiu can improve his strength, and the more confident he will be in completing the system mission the next time he travels through the world. Unfortunately, he doesn't care whether Parker is a real best friend to him now, but Parker cares about him very much. Just 2 hours later, Parker appeared outside Jiujiu's door with a school bag on his back and rang the doorbell of Jiujiu's house. When he opened the door, he saw Parker happily saying to Jiujiu, "Yi, since you and I are already friends, I think I should invite you to my home. Aunt May knew that I had made a friend, and she also wanted to invite you to her home. So, I came to find you. How about it, are you willing to visit my home? My dear friend." Hearing this, Jiujiu had to happily agree even if he was reluctant. After all, the Spider-Man Parker in this world did not experience the tragedy of his Uncle Ben dying in front of him, and did not have the warning words from his uncle. With great power comes great responsibility. His Aunt May is not that old, she looks only in her 30s. Oh, just to mention, Parker took the initiative to talk to Jiujiu about Parker's family. After all, casually asking about other people's family situations is not true friendship, so it is better not to mention it, so as not to affect the relationship between each other. 065 Give Parker a life perspective. The difference in the world also led to the difference in Spider-Man's family situation. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Google search reading. Being able to get in touch with his family as early as possible and get his family's approval can also speed up the time to become friends with Parker. Because in Jiujiu's mind, the so-called friend who can talk about anything is the moment Parker becomes Spider-Man, and he tells himself the secret. Only that kind of relationship can be considered to have completed the system's task. Thinking of this, Jiujiu reached out and hit Parker and said happily, "I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Okay. Since my parents left, I haven't been to my friend's house. I'm very happy that you can invite me to your house, Parker. Please wait for me for a while, I'll change my clothes and bring a little gift, hee, we'll go to your house together. After that, Jiujiu hurried back to his room, changed his clothes, found an unopened bottle of red wine from home, put it in the bag, and went out with Parker to Parker's house. Talking and laughing, they came to Parker's house. It was Parker's younger version of Aunt May who opened the door. The first meeting really gave Jiujiu a stunning feeling. It has to be said that mature women in the United States are more attractive than Chinese women in their 30s and 40s in China. Of course, Jiujiu is not a scumbag. He simply admires such women without any dirty thoughts. May looked very hospitable and welcomed Jiujiu's arrival. After politely accepting the gift from Jiujiu, she invited Jiujiu to sit in the living room and went to the kitchen to get busy. Wingdings, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Parker took Jiujiu upstairs to his room, which made Jiujiu very happy. After all, in the United States, whether it is a man or a woman who can take you into his bedroom, it means that he recognizes you as a friend from the bottom of his heart. In Parker's room, just like his academic status, there are many books, as well as a lot of electronic devices and other gadgets. Back in his own little world, Parker threw his school bag, lay on his back on the bed, waved to Jiujiu and said, "Come, Yi. Let me show you who my most admired idols are." Hearing this, Jiujiu also became interested. Although he knew that the Spider-Man in this world admired Tony, the Iron Man, Tony at that time was not yet Iron Man. He really wanted to know who Parker admired at that time. Sitting on Parker's bed, he saw Parker excitedly taking out a photo album, carefully opening the album, and seeing a photo cut from an old newspaper. Seeing the familiar hat covering the upper half of his face, the tight-fitting American flag clothes, and the iconic vibranium shield, Jiujiu looked at Parker speechlessly and asked, "Do you admire him, Parker? Captain America?" Hearing this, Parker nodded excitedly and said, "Yes. Yi. Do you know? Captain America was also very thin before becoming a super soldier, but he was very tenacious. Of course I will admire him. I also dream of becoming a superhero who saves the world one day, okay?" Hearing this, Jiujiu forced himself to hold back the urge to laugh in his heart, and comforted Parker and said, "Don't worry, Parker. I believe you are not an ordinary person, and you will definitely realize your dream and save the world." But he laughed secretly in his heart. If nothing unexpected happens, when you become Spider-Man, Captain America may not be able to beat you. As long as you are with me, your brother, in the next few years, I will definitely give you a chance to defeat Thanos with your own hands and save all mankind. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Parker was very happy when he heard this, not only because his good friend did not laugh at him, but also believed in him and encouraged him. Parker was so happy that he almost turned a somersault on the bed. After finally suppressing his excitement, Parker continued to flip through the photo album in his hand and said to Jiujiu, "Yi, can I learn Chinese kung fu from you? I also want to be a person who can fight. I don't want to be a burden to you. In the future, when I meet someone like Flashy, I will also beat him like you. Is it okay?" Hearing this, Jiujiu was stunned and thought. After Parker became Spider-Man, he was already very powerful. Although he didn't know any advanced fighting skills, his physical strength and power had been greatly improved, and even his reaction speed was abnormally strong. If he really learned the skills of the fighting master from me, then Captain America really couldn't beat him. Thinking of the possibility of fighting with Captain America, Jiujiu also became excited. It must be a very dramatic thing to see Spider-Man beat Captain America down with his own eyes. Thinking of this, Jiujiu nodded and agreed. "Okay, Parker. As long as you have the perseverance and determination, I can teach you the most powerful and applicable fighting skills, so that you can easily defeat people who are much stronger than you without relying on physical fitness. But let me make it clear first. Practicing fighting is a very hard thing, you must be prepared to endure hardships. Because once I start teaching you, I will never allow you to give up halfway, understand?" Hearing this, Parker nodded without hesitation, like a chick pecking at rice, and agreed with a, "Yes, okay, I will definitely do it." Then, after flipping through a few pages of the photo album, Jiujiu saw another photo cut out of a magazine that made him laugh and cry. Look at 2B's appearance and iconic smirk. Who else could it be if it wasn't Tony Stark? Looking at Parker, who was still excited, Jiujiu asked doubtfully. You still admire him? Parker. Your ambition is not to become a playboy with endless money like him, right? Hearing this, Parker was stunned, then shook his head like a rattle, and shouted unjustly. How is that possible? I don't want to be a playboy, I only like Gwen. Don't get me wrong, I just admire Mr. Tony's talent. Did you know? He was admitted to MIT at the age of 17. He is a great inventor, a genius in mechanical manufacturing, and an absolute master in management. Of course, it is exactly what you said, he is really too carefree. Hey. Having said this, Jiujiu also understood why Parker admired Tony so much in the play, and even worshipped Tony as a father figure. It turns out that the root of this is not only the later Iron Man but also Tony's past as a young genius. Understanding is understanding. Jiujiu didn't want his future comrades to be fooled away by Tony, so he nodded and said, well, it makes sense for you to admire him. But you don't have to underestimate yourself. Your genius is not much worse than Tony. You are even better than him. In the future, you will definitely replace him and become the pride of New York, the pride of the United States, and even the pride of the United States. So proud of the world. Having said this, Jiujiu closed the photo album in Parker's hand, picked it up gently and said, from now on, you no longer need idols, you just need to regard them as goals that need to be surpassed. Well, yes, they are goals. Work hard, young man, I am optimistic about you. 066 Unexpected Disaster. After hearing Jiujiu's words, Parker suddenly became stunned and didn't understand the meaning of Jiujiu's words. This shows how innocent and easy to fool Spider-Man at this time. While the two were talking, Aunt May shouted from downstairs. Parker, come down for dinner. Hearing the shout, the two agreed in unison and walked downstairs together. The table in the restaurant was already filled with food. After Jiujiu politely thanked Aunt May, he and Parker sat across from Aunt May. After May served the two of them with dishes, the three of them began to eat dinner. I have to say that this was the first formal dinner that Jiujiu had after traveling to Marvel. Although the taste was very different from Chinese food, Jiujiu still enjoyed it very much. The Parker family is an ordinary class, and naturally there is no rule about eating and sleeping. May asked about the two of them at school while eating. Parker seemed very active and told May everything that happened in the school. Except for his pursuit of Gwen, of course. When May heard that Jiujiu stood up for Parker to teach bad students who bullied their classmates, although she was happy to help Parker, she was still worried that the two of them would be retaliated by those people and said, thank you very much for protecting Parker in school, but you are still young and lack the awareness of self-protection. I still hope that when you encounter such a thing again, it is better to tell the teacher and let the school take action to solve it. Do you understand? How could Jiujiu not understand the thoughts of these ordinary people? They were just worried that the two young people would injure others or be injured by others. This was not only the habit of ordinary people in the United States to deal with injustice, but also the habit of most ordinary people in the world. Normal habits. Not wanting to refute May's kindness, Jiujiu replied while eating. Okay, Aunt May. We will pay attention to this. Next, the atmosphere at the dinner table also became lively. After all, with Parker, a talkative person, there would be no shortage of topics no matter where he was. After eating, Jiujiu saw that it was getting late, so he said goodbye to May and Parker and went home to prepare for tonight's action. Back home, Jiujiu had nothing to do, so he took out the cash he got last night and cleaned it up. It wasn't a lot, just 300,000 meters of gold. Don't think that this amount of money is too little. In the United States, it is not just 300,000 meters of gold, but even tens of thousands of meters of gold is not a small amount. For an ordinary family, hundreds of thousands of dollars will take several years or even years of hard work. It takes 10 years to get it. It was getting dark, and Jiujiu took a look at the situation outside through the window. Except for those who came back from get-off work and those who were jogging and exercising, there were almost no people around. It felt like it was about the same time as before. Jiujiu got up and left the house, took out a bicycle from the garage, and headed towards Hell's Kitchen. His target tonight is an underground casino owned by Gene Bin. The daily cash flow here is the largest in Gene Bin's hands, and the daily cash flow reaches an astonishing tens of millions. Since we want to get money from Jean Bing and attack Jean Bing's power, of course we have to start from the place where he feels most distressed. Still at the same place, he put the bicycle into the space, put on his sportswear and helmet, and still put the hood on his head. Jiujiu quickly entered Hell's Kitchen. In order to reach the destination as quickly as possible, Jiujiu took a shortcut and soon got into a secluded alley. Just as Jiujiu was immersed in rushing, a figure rushed out from the darkness. When he saw that the figure was about to hit him, Jiujiu ducked out of the way with a deft move, causing the figure to almost fall to the ground. In order not to waste his time, Jiujiu didn't plan to argue with this man. He planned to continue walking, but he saw several more men rushing out from behind Jiujiu. Jiujiu immediately knew that trouble was coming. These men all had sticks and other weapons in their hands, and they surrounded Jiujiu and the previous figures without any explanation. Jiujiu couldn't help but feel depressed and said in his heart, "If I don't take a shortcut, I'll get into trouble too. You really can't go out without looking at the almanac." At this time, the figure from before rushed to Jiujiu's side, grabbed Jiujiu's arm, and shouted nervously, "Don't come over here. My boyfriend is very good at beating me. I advise you to leave, otherwise you will be beaten up by my boyfriend." Hearing her words, Jiujiu was speechless and also knew that the previous person was a girl, and she was a very young girl. Her voice sounded like she was 15 or 16 years old at most. However, even though she was a girl, Jiujiu didn't want to be her shield, so he pulled out the hand he was holding from the girl's arms. Naturally, he inevitably touched the soft parts. Jiujiu was not in the mood to enjoy this feeling. He lowered his head and said to a few people, "Sorry, I said I didn't know her at all. Do you believe me?" Hearing this, the leader who surrounded the two men burst out laughing and said, "Who are you lying to? You are not a team, you will show up here alone in the middle of the night. She didn't run anywhere, she just came here and met you by chance. I think you are a team, she is responsible committing a crime, you." "Haha, of course I am responsible for taking care of her." "Haha, I guessed it right. Boy. If you are wise, hand over all the money you stole and all the money you have, otherwise. We promise to beat you to death and throw you into the sewer to feed the rats." After saying that, all the gangsters surrounding the two men laughed wildly, not at all worried about any excessive resistance from the two men. After all, in the eyes of these gangsters, one is a girl and the other is a young man, and they are unarmed. What can they do to 7 or 8 of their men? Hearing the laughter around him, Jiujiu knew that something was wrong. Just when he was about to continue saying something, the girl next to him shouted in horror, "Oh, you can't do this. Aren't we in the same group? Hurry up and beat them. I know you are very powerful, okay?" Hearing this, Jiujiu held back what he was about to say. He was a little curious about the origin of this girl. From her tone, she seemed to know who she was. The next moment, the gangsters surrounding the two people had gradually narrowed the circle. Judging from the situation, they were not prepared to give Jiujiu a chance to explain and were about to attack the two people. What else could Jiujiu say? He could only take action. The next moment, Jiujiu's body moved violently, and he rushed in front of the gangster leader in the blink of an eye. Before he could react, he punched him in the eye socket and let out a cry of awe. In the middle, Jiujiu continued to take action very quickly without stopping. He knocked all the gangsters behind him to the ground with 3 punches and 2 kicks. The girl behind him was obviously not a lady. She was also an expert in fighting. Although her body was thin and weak, she could still use the backpack in her hand to deal with 2 or 3 gangsters. 067 Vibration Female Sky. After putting down the gangster in front of him, Jiujiu turned around, folded his arms and watched the girl deal with the 3 gangsters with no intention of intervening. The girl fought with the 3 gangsters while waving her backpack. The backpack beat the 3 gangsters and made them dizzy. At the same time, she did not forget to shout to Jiujiu, "Aren't you a man? Are you just watching me, a girl, fighting 3 gangsters? Why don't you help bring them down quickly? Search TWKAN on Google." Hearing this, Jiujiu didn't want to waste time and wanted to interrogate the girl to see what she knew. For Jiujiu, the 3 gangsters fell to the ground effortlessly. At this point, All 7 or 8 gangsters were knocked unconscious. Jiujiu looked up at his surroundings, turned around, took the girl's arm, and walked to the other end of the alley. The girl had obviously been mentally prepared. She followed Jiujiu and walked quickly without even asking a question on the way. After walking out of the alley and coming to a secluded place, Jiujiu let go of the girl's hand, turned back to look at the girl and asked, "Tell me. Who are you? What do you know? Why did you deliberately lead people to me?" Hearing this, the girl rubbed her wrist that was so painful from Jiujiu's tug before and said, "I know that you are the person Kingpin is looking for, and I also know that you are going to pass by there. As for where those gangsters were led to you, do you believe it when I say it is a coincidence?" Having said this, the girl smiled sheepishly and continued, "Hey, don't get me wrong, it's really a coincidence. I was going to come to you directly, but I didn't expect to meet the gangsters who I had stolen money from before on the road. When they found out about me, they chased after me, so there you go." After saying that, the girl shrugged her shoulders, saying that it was really a coincidence and that I looked innocent. When Jiujiu heard this, he understood that this girl must know that she was the one who ruined Jean Bin's business last night, and also knew that she was going to pass there, so she came to block him, but she still didn't understand why this girl wanted to block her himself, so Jiujiu asked directly, "Enough nonsense, why did you come to me? Please note that I don't like to hear lies, so please tell me your true purpose. Otherwise, I don't mind killing people and silencing them." The threat was very obvious, but the girl was not afraid at all. She curled her lips and muttered indifferently, "TCH. You sound like a murderous demon. I'm not afraid of you." Although the voice was small, Jiujiu could hear it clearly. Hearing the words, he couldn't help but raise his head. The emotionless helmet was suddenly exposed, which shocked the girl and hurriedly explained, "Don't be angry, hee. In fact, I only knew about the existence of a person like you when Kingpin issued a wanted order. As for me, I am a hacker. Hee. A pretty powerful hacker. My name is Sky, I am an orphan without parents. Not to mention your hiding skills are really good. If it weren't for me, I really wouldn't be able to find who robbed Kingpin." Hearing this, Jiujiu's face under the helmet couldn't help but twitch, and in his heart he felt a horse galloping past, and he was wailing in his heart. What kind of world is this? Sky from S.H.I.E.L.D. is out. Will there be any Inhumans? Sky couldn't see Jiujiu's expression under the helmet and continued to explain. "By hacking into the store's cameras, I finally found the whereabouts of you and Daredevil, and found out your retreat route. I continued to hack into those stores today, and only then did I see you appearing here tonight, and according to your route, I will go to the alley in advance to wait for you." Luckily I was lucky. Although there was a little trouble along the way, luckily you were really powerful and knocked them all down. After listening to Sky's story, Jiujiu was really scared. It was not that he was afraid that Sky would betray him, but that he was worried that those special agencies would find him in this way. They don't have to hack into any store's camera like Sky, they just need to go door to door to find themselves. So, is his so-called covert action really covert? Isn't it possible that my identity will be leaked? Seeing that Jiujiu hadn't spoken for a long time, Sky seemed to have guessed what Jiujiu was worried about. After all, she was a hacker. She would never have thought that Jiujiu must be worried about her whereabouts being leaked, so she comforted him. "Don't worry. As long as I'm here, you don't have to worry about your whereabouts being leaked. I've replaced all the videos in which you appear. No one can find your identity. You know, I'm going to be with you. Work together to bring down Jean and send him to hell." Hearing this, Jiujiu breathed a sigh of relief and couldn't help but become confused. It doesn't matter that Sky and the Kingpin have a grudge, or that Sky simply doesn't like the Kingpin and wants to bring him down. Since she knows about Daredevil's existence, why doesn't she cooperate with Daredevil? After all, Daredevil had done something right with Kingpin's gang before him, right? Asking as he thought of it, Jiujiu asked, "Why me? I don't seem to be the only one who opposes Kingpin, right? Why did you choose me?" Hearing this, Sky curled her lips disdainfully and said, "TSK, I really look down on other people. They call themselves messengers of justice and spare no effort to fight against evil. But what's the result? How many of the bad guys sent to prison by them have really changed? Those gangs still exist and are still controlled by them. But you are different. From the dock incident, we can see that you will not hold back when dealing with those evil people. Only you can completely destroy the Kingpin group. So, that's why I come to you for cooperation. Although I am not very good at fighting, I can provide you with logistical and technical support. Let you deal with the Kingpin group without any worries. How about it? Are you willing to accept my joining? Hearing this, Jiujiu couldn't help but think secretly. From the play, we can see that Sky's ability is unquestionable. Except for the artificial intelligence Jarvis, no one can compare with Sky in electronic equipment. Then, cooperating with Sky is indeed of great benefit to me. In this case, the advantage is that not only can Sky help him monitor the movements of the Jinbing group, but she can also provide him with technical support. The disadvantage is not small either. After all, Sky is not the Jiujiu girl in the future. Her combat ability is too weak. Once someone knows that she is cooperating with him, they can find him by catching her. After thinking about it for a while, Jiujiu decided to cooperate with Sky. After all, the advantages of cooperation outweigh the disadvantages. As for the possibility that she might expose herself, at most she could arrange Sky behind the scenes and act on her own. 068 New partner. After making the decision, Jiujiu finally nodded and said to Sky, "Okay. I agree to cooperate with you. You can hide behind the scenes and provide me with intelligence and technical support. Then, I also want to know, do you know my real identity?" Google search TWKAN. Hearing this, Sky became interested and said with a grin, "Hee hee. Your real identity. If you are willing to take off the helmet on your head and let me see your true face, I don't mind." "Hee hee, don't worry. How did you get into Hell's Kitchen?" "I didn't see it from the camera. After all, there was northwest camera at the place where you appeared. Do you think you are good at choosing a location?" Hearing this, Jiujiu finally breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Sky didn't know his real identity, it would be fine. So he nodded and continued said, "So, since we want to cooperate, I will provide you with a safe place and prepare enough equipment for you. Do you have any good suggestions?" Hearing this, Sky's beautiful eyes suddenly lit up, and she grabbed Jiujiu's arm and said excitedly, "Really? Is there such a benefit? Then can I live with you?" Speaking of this, she seemed to react and said a little disappointedly, "Oh, sorry. Since you are going to hide your identity, then I naturally can't live with you. After all, we have just started to cooperate and have not established a foundation of mutual trust." "Well, I will choose the location, and I will find someone to buy all the equipment I need, you just need to pay." Hearing this, Jiujiu's heart couldn't help but move. To be honest, Sky's appearance is really beautiful. She is a mixed race of Chinese and American. She has the beauty of an Oriental woman and the clear lines of a Western woman. She has perfect facial features and long hair. Her figure is not fully developed because she is only 15 years old, but it is also quite large. She is already a rare little beauty. It is really a pleasant thing to live with such a beauty. But Jiujiu also knew that it was not the time to have further development with Sky. At least he had to wait until he really understood her and felt that she would be a good partner worthy of trust, then Jiujiu would truly accept her. After all, in addition to Parker, Jiujiu did need reliable and capable team members to form a team to face the attack of Thanos. With Sky's presence tonight, Jiujiu gave up the idea of continuing the action. He sent Sky out of Hell's Kitchen first, found a hotel for him to stay, and left her enough money, and then continued the action after everything was ready. Thinking of this, Jiujiu took Sky's hand and said as he walked, "Tonight's action is cancelled. Find a place for you to rest for one night. I will leave you enough money for you to buy equipment. When you are ready, I will continue the action." Sky was pulled away by Jiujiu, but she felt very warm in her heart. It had been a long time since she felt the care of others. She understood that Jiujiu had already had a target in mind, but he cancelled the action for his own safety. This indirectly showed that Jiujiu cared about her very much, so she was naturally happy. After leaving Hell's Kitchen in silence, in the alley outside a hotel, Jiujiu took out a bag of 300,000 Mi gold from the corner, actually from the space, handed the bag to Sky, and said to Sky. This is the 300,000 cash I gave you. You will stay in the hotel alone. You will also need to find a place to settle down tomorrow, and you will also need to buy the equipment by yourself. Leave me a communication device, and I will notify you before the action. Hearing this, Sky did not blame Jiujiu for being too cautious, but took the bag, took out a mobile phone from his backpack, handed it to Jiujiu, and said, "This is the special contact mobile phone I gave you. It has the function of a walkie-talkie. You only need to wear headphones to talk to me in real time. Don't worry, I will get things done tomorrow. When you continue to act at night, I will control the cameras in all Hell's Kitchen and provide you with technical support. Bye." After that, Sky picked up the heavy bag in his hand, carried the backpack behind him, and walked towards the hotel without looking back. Watching Sky walk to the hotel, Jiujiu couldn't help but think with emotion. This Sky is really independent and confident, only 15 years old. So amazing, no wonder Coulson valued him and made an exception to recruit him into S.H.I.E.L.D. After Sky walked into the hotel, Jiujiu turned around and disappeared into the alley. Behind the glass window of the hotel, Sky stood behind, watching Jiujiu leaving. Sky whispered, "I will find you. No matter how careful you are, I am the most powerful." Sky. Her confidence comes from her confidence in her own skills. The mobile phone she gave to Jiujiu has a positioning system. No matter whether Jiujiu is turned off, as long as the battery is not removed, she will definitely locate him. Unfortunately, she didn't know that Jiujiu had a cheating device called Space, and the mobile phone she gave to Jiujiu had been thrown into the space when Jiujiu turned around. This also meant that no matter how superb Sky's skills were, he could not locate Jiujiu's position, unless Jiujiu wanted Sky to know his position. Of course, this is not absolute. After all, as long as there are cameras, Sky will always find a way to find Jiujiu. However, this is not something that can be done in a day or two. After saying goodbye to Sky, Jiujiu changed his clothes in the alley, took out his bicycle and walked through several alleys in the other direction before entering the avenue and going straight home. After a simple wash, Jiujiu lay on the bed, rethinking how to use Sky's technical support to more accurately combat Jean Bing's dark transactions. After a night of silence, he went to school with Parker as usual in the morning. Jiujiu clearly felt that his friendship with Parker had changed significantly since last night. In the past, they were just friends, but now they have gradually developed into close friends who can talk about anything, but the system still did not recognize the completion of the task. Jiujiu also knew that if he wanted the system to recognize it, he had to wait until Parker was bitten by a spider and could tell him his secret in person before it was completed. After a day of school, Jiujiu felt more tired than a day of fighting. After going home with Parker and saying goodbye to each other, Jiujiu returned home. Bored, he finally downloaded the Chinese recipes on the internet, and prepared to experiment with cooking Chinese dishes to satisfy his appetite. Jiujiu was really disgusted by those fast foods, and he didn't want to eat them anymore, so he had to cook them himself. Not to mention, intelligence brought Jiujiu a lot of benefits. After several burns and loss of a lot of ingredients, he finally made a dish that looked good. He finally got to eat the long-missed Chinese dish, twice-cooked pork. 069 looting a casino. At night, he rode his new bike and came to his previous location. After changing his equipment and entering Hell's Kitchen, he took out his mobile phone from the space. At the same time, Sky, who was in a warehouse, also received a notification that Jiujiu was online. Looking at Jiujiu's current position, Sky curled her lips in dissatisfaction and muttered, "Be really careful. It actually blocks my location system. I will find you sooner or later." After saying that, she put on the special earphones, controlled the cameras around Jiujiu, and waited for Jiujiu to start talking to her. After a long while, after looking at the green dot representing Jiujiu on the screen and entering the alley, I heard Jiujiu's low voice. "Sky, I can't call you by your name from now on. Give yourself a code name." "My code name is Ian, you can call me that." When Sky heard this, he admired Jiujiu's carefulness, so he also said in the headset, "Okay, Ian. I know. What's my code name? How about calling me God?" "Forget it, I'm joking, just call me S." Hearing this, Jiujiu rolled his eyes helplessly in his helmet, and still said, "Okay, S. My target tonight is Kingpin's underground casino. I need you to control the cameras and alarm facilities around the casino before I start. I want to take away all of Kingpin's half-month income. There is also information about the casino boss. I want you to help me find them. I will take action to clean him up." Hearing this, Sky suddenly became excited. She was excited about actually cooperating with Jiujiu for the first time, and also excited about actually dealing with the Kingpin group. She promised in her mouth, "Copy that. Give me 3 minutes." And moved quickly with both hands. The sound of cracking, tapping on the keyboard reached Jiujiu's ears through the headphones of both parties, making Jiujiu couldn't help but smile, and his mood became happy. After all, with Sky, he was not fighting alone. It said 3 minutes, it was 3 minutes. 3 minutes later, the phone in his pocket rang. Jiujiu took out his phone and opened the screen, and saw 3 photos appearing on the phone screen. At the same time, Sky's slightly proud voice came from the Bluetooth headset. "These 3 are the bosses of the casino and Kingpin's right-hand men. Many of their men have lost their lives. I think we can declare their death penalty. In addition, the cameras in the casino and the nearest route have been controlled by me, so there is nothing to pay attention to. You can go directly. Also, I wish you success in your actions." After listening to Sky's words, Jiujiu said reflexively, "Okay, I understand. Thank you, S." After saying that, Jiujiu was stunned for a moment. He really didn't expect that he and Sky would be happy to cooperate so quickly. Then he shook his head and quickly walked to the underground casino according to the navigation instructions on his mobile phone. 10 minutes later, Jiujiu stood on the building opposite the casino, looking at the casino below where people were entering from time to time. He summoned Wolf Warriors 1 and 2 from the space with a raise of his hand. Under the command of Jiujiu's thoughts, the 2 wolves rushed towards the casino building. The design of this casino is very interesting. The several floors on the ground are hotels, the 2 underground floors are the location of the casino, and the top floor is where several bosses of the casino work and rest. Jiujiu's goal is the room of the big boss Siedamba, where all the proceeds from the casino in the past half-month are stored. The guards outside the casino suddenly saw 2 huge dog monsters running down from the opposite building. They were startled. The guard who responded quickly had already sounded the alarm bell of the casino, and several other guards had already come out. He pulled out a pistol from his waist and started shooting at Wolf Warrior. The Wolf Warriors didn't stop at all, and rushed towards the gangster guards who shot them with bullets in their hands. At this time, Jiujiu slid down the rope from the upstairs, holding a mechanical crossbow in his hand, and rushed towards the casino with his waist high. He didn't dare to rush ahead. The casino was no different from other places. There were heavy guys here. Not to mention light and heavy machine guns, at least there is no shortage of submachine guns and assault rifles, and there may even be grenades and rocket launchers. For your own safety, it is safer to let the 2 warriors take the lead. In fact, Jiujiu also wanted to sneak in quietly, but the defense here was no worse than that of a military base. It was really impossible for Jiujiu to sneak in easily. After clearing away the guards at the door, the 2 wolves rushed into the door. After killing all the guards who rushed out of the door, Jiujiu also rushed into the door. He raised his hand and shot the front desk who was hiding in the bar and wanted to sneak attack him. Jiujiu followed behind Zhang Lang and rushed upstairs quickly along the stairs. He had to act quickly, otherwise Kingpin would know when he got the news. He will continuously send his subordinates to surround him. 2 wolves, one behind the other, opened the way and blocked the rear. Jiujiu safely rushed all the way to the top. More than 20 gangsters have gathered here. Siedamba was hiding at the end of the crowd, holding an assault rifle in his hand. He looked nervously in the direction of the stairwell. The next moment he saw a weapon with a metallic light shining all over its body. The monster rushed out. Siedamba suddenly let out a roar of "shoot." The wolf's body withstood the bullets and retreated 10 meters back, which puzzled Siedamba and the others. The next moment, a black object was suddenly thrown from the stairs, flew 20 meters away and fell into the crowd. The gunshots suddenly stopped, and everyone looked at the thing on the ground in surprise, and then something terrifying happened. Then the thing bounced up with a buzz sound and stopped above everyone's head, followed by dense arrows and steel balls swooshing in all directions, and for a while, screams of ugh were heard in the corridor. In just 3 seconds, more than 20 people were killed by the trap thrown by Jiujiu. Until then, Jiujiu walked out of the listening room on the floor, and under the protection of Werewolf, walked to the last room in the corridor. Passing by the body of Sidamba, who was lying on the ground with an expression of disbelief in his eyes until his death, Jiujiu snorted disdainfully and came to the door of the room. He kicked the door open with his leg, dodged to the side, and Werewolf rushed in. Sure enough, there were a few gunshots and a scream inside, and then the room became quiet. Jiujiu then walked into the room, glanced at the other casino boss who was killed by the werewolf tail, stepped over the body and found a huge safe in a corner of the mortal world. After taking a look at the safe, Jiujiu didn't waste any time, stretched out his hand and pressed it, and put the safe into the space with a thought. 070 Bullseye returns. The next moment, under the protection of Wolf Warrior, Jiujiu rushed down the building and killed the gangsters who came to support him. He rushed into the alley and disappeared into the night. The whole process of Jiujiu's battle was seen by Sky through the camera of the casino, which really shocked Sky. She really didn't expect that Jiujiu would have so many means and such strong fighting power. Jiujiu completely solved dozens of gangsters in less than 10 minutes, and even Jinbing Group didn't have time to react. In fact, it was true. 5 minutes after Jiujiu left here, a large number of Jinbing's men rushed over. Unfortunately, they only saw corpses all over the ground and the marks left by the disappeared safe. The news was quickly passed back to Jinbing. The angry Jinbing smashed things in the office again. This time the loss was not comparable to a few 100,000, but the income of the casino for a whole half-month. Not to mention the tens of millions of cash, there were also many gamblers who mortgaged jewelry, industrial equity, and other documents in the casino. The total loss was more than 20 million, which was a real blow to Jinbing. After smashing for a long time, Jinbing stared at his subordinates with bloodshot eyes and asked in a cold voice, "Is Bullseye back?" The subordinates were frightened by his eyes and immediately answered carefully, "Report to boss, I am already on the flight back. If nothing unexpected happens, Bullseye will appear in front of you tomorrow morning." After hearing this, Jinbing was silent for a while and said to his subordinates, "Contact Bullseye, don't come to see me, I want him to act immediately, no matter what means he uses, find that damn bastard for me and get my money back. Also, tell him that this time I allow him to make a big deal, whether it is official or other forces, I will say hello, he can do whatever he wants." After saying that, Kingpin walked out of the office, leaving behind his pale-faced subordinate and the completely messy office. How could this subordinate not be afraid? You have to know that Bullseye is not an ordinary person. His own fighting ability is not weak. Coupled with his unique skill of throwing knives, no matter what it is, it can become a deadly weapon in his hand, and it is always accurate. As far as he knows, Bullseye can throw an ordinary toothpick or a paper playing card as a flying knife, which is powerful enough to shoot into a person's skull and kill him. Not to mention nails, glass fragments, and other sharp weapons and his unique flying knives, which are even more powerful. What's more terrifying is Bullseye's abnormal personality. With the big boss Kingpin suppressing him, he could still restrain himself. Once the restrictions were lifted, his perverted cruelty was not something that ordinary people could bear. He didn't know how crazy Bullseye would be, how many people would die in his hands, how many forces would be offended, and even the police and the FBI would notice them. At this time, Bullseye was on a plane. He had just received a notice from Kingpin, allowing him to let go and find out who was targeting Kingpin's group. After turning off his phone, Bullseye's eyes were so bright that he raised his right hand and rubbed it hard on his bald head, and finally stopped at the target-shaped scar on his forehead. After a while, he put it to his lips and kissed it hard, and whispered, "Wait for me, mysterious man. I will find you. Don't let me down. Oh. After saying that, Bullseye laughed. This laughter was extremely strange, very different from the laughter of ordinary people, and it made people feel uncomfortable and creepy. At this time, Jiujiu had left Hell's Kitchen under Sky's command. Of course, before leaving Hell's Kitchen, he put the headphones and mobile phone into the space. Seeing Jiujiu disappear again, Sky said with a sigh of disappointment, This hidden is really too careful, leaving no chance of exposure. However, it is indeed much safer to cooperate with such a person. Haha. After saying that, Sky continued to operate on the keyboard, erasing all the images left by Jiujiu completely without leaving any trace. After returning home, taking a shower and returning to bed, Jiujiu did not rashly take the safe out of the space, but opened the insurance premium on the tool bench in the space. Although there was no tracking device found in the safe, Jiujiu did not think it was unnecessary to do so. You must know that any negligence will cause the enemy and those who are interested to find his traces, causing him a lot of trouble. Before the strength is not enough to deter those people, no matter how careful you are, it is not too much. When Jiujiu opened the safe, he saw more than 1,000 stacks of rice gold neatly arranged inside, and he could not help but he smiled. A total of more than 11 million yuan in rice and gold, finally a big harvest. Looking at other things, there are many jewelry, and the rest are some document bags. Jiujiu took a rough look at these documents, which are all documents for mortgaged real estate equity. Jiujiu has no interest in these things and throws them aside. After putting the cash and jewelry away, Jiujiu fell asleep with satisfaction. The next day, he went to school with Parker again, but the talkative and lively Parker seemed to have changed. He was silent all the way and didn't say a word. Jiujiu knew that Parker had encountered something, and secretly thought about it and guessed what happened to Parker. Jiujiu really didn't believe it if something happened between him and Gwen. Gwen's character is not that of a girl who cares about everything. Parker is shy around girls, so naturally he won't offend Gwen easily, so it's not an emotional issue. So what else is going on? What would happen to Parker? Jiujiu couldn't think of any solution, so he put his arm around Parker's shoulders and said, "Parker, are we friends?" When Parker heard this, he was originally thinking about something else. He thought Jiujiu needed help for something, so he hurriedly raised his head and said, "Of course. We are best friends." Jiujiu nodded when he heard this, looked at Parker seriously and said, "Then, if you have any difficulties, you can tell me. Maybe I can give you some advice and help you, but I don't necessarily know." Hearing this, the moved look on Parker's face flashed across his face, but a troubled look reappeared on his face, and he hesitated and said, I have nothing to do, you don't have to worry about me, I really have nothing to do." Hearing this, Jiujiu became more certain that Parker was in trouble, so he continued. "No, that's not right. Something must be wrong, Parker. Your state is very wrong, this is not like you at all." 071 The Birth of Spider-Man. Hearing this, Parker stopped talking for a while, then sighed and said to Jiujiu, "Hey. I don't know what's going on. Do you know? When I was rummaging through the utility room yesterday, I found the briefcase left by my father. I saw a photo cut out of a newspaper. On it, there's my father, Richard Parker, and next to him is a doctor named Kurt Connors. Did you know? When I was 6 years old, my father and mother died mysteriously. I miss them very much, and I want to know what happened in the first place." Having said this, Parker paused before continuing. "I checked the information about that person online. He is a biological scientist affiliated with the Osborn group like my father. I don't know what to do. Should I go to him and ask about my parents back then?" Hearing this, Jiujiu knew that this was Parker's opportunity. Only by asking him to find Connors as soon as possible would he be bitten by a spider and mutate into Spider-Man, so he encouraged him. "Don't you already know who he is? You also know where he is. I think you should go to the Osborn group to find him. The right thing to do is ask him face to face. After all, as a son, it is natural to ask for information about your parents. No one can say you are wrong." Hearing this, Parker's eyes suddenly lit up, and he looked into Jiujiu's eyes and asked, "Really? Do you also think I should go find him?" Hearing this, Jiujiu nodded affirmatively and said, "Yes, Parker. I think you can go find him after class today. What you should do is get the information about your parents as soon as possible. Parker, I support you." Hearing this, Parker seemed to be affirmed. He nodded heavily without hesitation and agreed with a Seeing that Parker decided to go to the Osborn group, Jiujiu secretly breathed a sigh of relief and said in his heart, It's finally time for Parker to become Spider-Man. I can finally get rid of the hard student life. After getting the answer, Parker returned to his previous talkative state and kept talking to Jiujiu, which gave Jiujiu a headache. After school in the afternoon, Parker couldn't wait to say goodbye to Jiujiu and went to the Osborn group alone. Jiujiu also returned to his home. He didn't plan to go to Hell's Kitchen tonight. After all, Kingpin had suffered so much loss and it wasn't time to continue. Out of boredom, Jiujiu continued to pick up the cookbook and learn how to cook. Today he planned to make his favorite braised pork ribs. As for Parker's opportunity, he didn't want to interfere. If nothing unexpected happened, Parker would transform into Spider-Man today. After dinner, Jiujiu was bored watching TV at home when he suddenly heard a knock on the door. Jiujiu suddenly felt something in his heart, wondering if Parker, who had noticed something strange about him, was here. Standing up excitedly, Jiujiu rushed to the door in 3 steps and 2 steps at a time. When he opened the door, he saw a hesitant Parker standing at the door with a slightly pale face, looking at Jiujiu. His eyes were full of confusion. Jiujiu hurriedly reached out and pulled Parker into the house, closed the door, and took Parker to sit on the sofa. Jiujiu picked up the phone and called Aunt May. When the call was connected, Jiujiu said to Aunt May in a relaxed tone, "Aunt May, is that you?" "I'm Yi." "Oh, it's Yi." "I'm May, what can I do?" Aunt May is like this. "I didn't understand today's lesson. I want to keep Parker here to help me with tutoring. I'd like to inform you specifically and I hope you can allow it." "Oh, is that so?" "Okay, I agree. Don't go out alone at night." "Got it." "Okay, Aunt May, I understand, don't worry." "Goodbye, Aunt May." "Goodbye." After hanging up the phone, Jiujiu sat down in front of the lost Parker, put his hand on his shoulder, and said seriously, "Tell me, Parker, what happened? Trust me, I will help you." Jiujiu held his shoulders and felt the weight on his shoulders. Hearing Jiujiu's words, Parker felt caring and seemed to be alive. He subconsciously asked, "Yi, do you believe that people can mutate?" Hearing this, Jiujiu knew that Parker was indeed bitten by a spider, and he felt something different before coming back, so he nodded and said, "I believe that your idol, Captain America, also mutated into a superhero through potion. What's wrong with you, Parker, tell me. I can help you." Hearing this, Parker's expression became hesitant, and Jiujiu did not rush him, waiting for Parker to tell the truth. After a long while, Parker stood up and said seriously as if he had made up his mind, "Next, you will see incredible things. I hope you can see me correctly." After saying that, Parker put down the school bag behind him, looked up at the ceiling of the room, then squatted down and jumped up suddenly, sticking to the ceiling, and turned his head to look at Jiujiu. Jiujiu made a surprised expression appropriately, but there was no expression of looking at the monster in his expression. Instead, it was all expressions of surprise. Parker immediately relaxed. He was really worried about losing Jiujiu as a friend, and was afraid that Jiujiu would treat him as a monster. Jiujiu's surprised expression continued, waving to Parker on the roof and saying, "Come down, Parker. I want to know what you went through. Why did you mutate?" Hearing this, Parker landed from the roof, sat back on the sofa, shrugged and said to Jiujiu, "I don't know what happened. I just felt very tired on the subway after returning from Osborn Group, and I woke up with this ability." Jiujiu certainly knew what happened, but he couldn't just say it directly, so he began to guide. "Parker, people can't suddenly mutate, they need specific conditions to mutate. Think about it, did anything special happen in Osborn Group? For example, did you accidentally drink something? Or were you exposed to some special rays, or were you bitten by something?" Hearing this, Parker looked puzzled. Ching suddenly realized and said, "Ah, I know. I accidentally entered a special room in the Osborn Group and saw a lot of spiders. It seems that I was bitten by one of the spiders. Is it because of this?" Jiujiu also pretended to be suddenly enlightened, stretched out his hand and patted Parker on the shoulder and said, "That's right, it must be like this. You were bitten by a spider, and it infected your DNA and mutated. In other words, you are now a humanoid spider." "Haha, then Parker." You may have the ability of a spider, and it has been enhanced. Oh my god. Parker, you have become a superhero, do you know? 072 Spider-Man and hashtag 039's welfare mission. Just as he finished speaking, the system voice rang. Congratulations to the host for completing the daily task. Go to school with Spider-Man Parker to register, and let Parker and the host become real friends who can talk about anything. The reward for completing the task is 1,000 experience points. Google search reading. Because of the recognition of Spider-Man Parker, a special task is triggered. Make a spinner for Spider-Man, design a Spider-Man suit for Spider-Man. The technology level is insufficient, and only a stab-proof Spider-Man suit synthesized in space with special materials can be made. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the spinner manufacturing drawings. After completing the task, the reward is strength and physical attributes *1, and experience points are 1,000. Hearing the news from the system, Jiujiu was really surprised. He didn't expect that after completing the daily tasks, there would be unexpected surprises, especially the spinner, which is indispensable to Parker and a powerful helper for him. Imagine that in the future, in the battle, suddenly flipping the wrist, spraying countless spider silk to trap the enemy, or using spider silk to escape and evacuate. Just thinking about it feels exciting. Thinking of this, Jiujiu pretended to be excited and talked to Parker about the characteristics of spiders, and just raised the question about spider silk. This topic immediately attracted Parker's attention. He recalled the spider abilities he currently possessed in his mind, but sadly found that he lacked the most powerful and indispensable ability of spiders, that is, the ability to spin silk. Thinking of this, Parker suddenly became distressed. He looked at Jiujiu with a sad face and said helplessly, "What should I do? I have almost all the abilities of a spider, but I only lack the ability to spin silk. Am I a failed Spider-Man?" Hearing this, Jiujiu also knew that the time had come, so he patted his chest and pretended to know everything and said, "What's so difficult about this? Without the ability to spin silk, can't we artificially create tools that can spin silk instead?" After that, Jiujiu reached out and patted Parker's shoulder heavily, and said to Parker, "It's okay, Parker, I said I would help you. In my opinion, it is not difficult to make a tool for spinning silk. What we have to pay attention to is whether the artificially made spider silk can bear enough weight and will not cause it to break when you use it. Come on, Parker. Let's go to my workshop together, and I will help you make your own spinning tool now." After that, Jiujiu took Parker, who was still confused and excited, and went straight to the workshop. In fact, Jiujiu brought Parker to the workshop as an excuse. He had the manufacturing drawings of the spinnerette in his current space, but if he wanted to make a spinnerette with enough black technology, he had to do it in the space. This was easy to handle. The two of them could do it separately, and Jiujiu only needed to take out the spinnerette made in the space and give it to Parker before Parker studied the spinnerette he originally made in the play, and he could successfully complete the system's task. Then, Jiujiu asked Parker to choose a location and design the spinnerette by himself. As for the materials, he could use local materials or even order them online. Parker was indeed a top student. He designed his own spinnerette in just 1 hour. Of course, because of the materials, he couldn't make it now. Jiujiu was different. He made it in the space according to the drawings provided by the system. Not to mention making a spinnerette with black technology, it was really troublesome. There were more than a dozen materials. Fortunately, there was everything in the space. He only needed to use the energy conversion furnace to convert and manufacture to get the materials Jiujiu needed. After the material parts were manufactured, the remaining part was assembly. This was not difficult at all in the mechanical space. In just over an hour, Jiujiu made 4 spinners. Taking out 4 spinners from the space, Jiujiu excitedly took them in his hands and looked at them from left to right. The spinner looked like a thin coin-sized disc, and the whole body was black. The material was like metal but not metal, and it was impossible to tell what material it was made of. But Jiujiu knew that this black technology spinner was completely waterproof, anti-electric, and anti-collision. It can be said that its performance completely surpassed the spinner used by Parker in the Spider-Man movie. The spider silk in the spinner was much more than the original spinner, and its bearing capacity was more than doubled. After watching the 4 spinners excitedly, he equipped 2 of them on his wrists. As soon as the spinners were close to his wrists, 2 wristbands were ejected from both sides with a click, firmly fixing the spinners on Jiujiu's wrists. The method of using the spinner is also very simple. Just raise your hand, press your palm downward, and spider silk will be ejected from the nozzle. The magical thing is that it can also eject spider silk of different lengths according to the user's wishes, which can be used for high-altitude hanging and moving. It can also eject small spider webs, which can be used to trap the enemy's hands and feet. As for the principle of this thing, to be honest, Jiujiu doesn't understand it very well, and doesn't want to find out the truth. After all, this thing is only an auxiliary role for Jiujiu, and he can't always rely on this little thing to fight. In fact, there is only one reason. He is just Jiujiu, a mechanical hunter. He is not Parker, let alone Spider-Man. Holding the remaining 2 spinners, Jiujiu came to Parker, who was still calculating the results on the drawings. Jiujiu spread his hands and showed the 2 spinners to Parker, and said arrogantly, "Look, Parker. This is the spinner I developed. How about it? Awesome, right?" Hearing this, Parker raised his head in disbelief, looked at the spinnerette in Jiujiu's hand, and then shouted exaggeratedly, "Wow! Is this true? My God! You are so amazing, Yi. I just had a little idea, and you have already made it. You are really a genius." After saying this, Parker couldn't wait to pick up the 2 spinnerettes from Jiujiu's hand. After looking at them left and right in his hand for a while, he asked in confusion, "Yi, how to equip this thing? How to use it?" Hearing this, Jiujiu raised his eyebrows and said to Parker proudly, "You put the spinnerette close to your wrist, it will automatically fix and transmit the use function to your brain." Hearing this, Parker looked down at the 2 small discs in his hand with a little disbelief, and then followed Jiujiu's words and placed the 2 spinnerettes on his left and right wrists respectively. The next moment, Parker was shocked. The spinner was fixed on his wrist, and Parker was not surprised at all, but the information transmitted from the spinner into his brain shocked him. This small spinner gave Parker a feeling of being too advanced, and he was even more shocked by the powerful function of the spinner. 073 Spinner and Spider-Man Suit. Seeing Parker's excited and shocked expression, Jiujiu thought that the system mission still lacked a Spider-Man suit, so he left a message to Parker. "Parker, you can familiarize yourself with the function of the spinner first, and I will also design a suit for you. There is no way you can just wear a coat and go out to be Spider-Man." Haha. After saying that, Jiujiu ignored Parker's grateful eyes, turned around and walked away. Google search reading. You know, this task is related to a reward of strength and physical attribute points, and Jiujiu doesn't dare to be careless. If he waits for Parker to design his own suit, this task will be over. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Even though the suit that Parker designed for the first time, to be honest, really stretched the crotch and was baggy like a set of pajamas, it was still a suit after all, not a suit. After returning to his position, Jiujiu sighed helplessly after his excitement passed. The reason is, of course, that although there are a lot of materials in the space, the only thing missing is the fabric of the stab-resistant suit made of special materials, which cannot be used to make Spider-Man's suit. In desperation, Jiujiu had no choice but to draw Parker wearing the Spider-Man suit on the drawing based on the Spider-Man suit worn by Parker in the movie. Not to mention, the original Jiujiu had some talent in painting. Although his painting was not very marvelous, he could still draw the essence of Spider-Man's suit. The red grid-like headgear and silver-white goggles for the eyes. The tight-fitting suit is also grid-shaped with red at the top and blue at the bottom. When worn close to the body, there is a large spider pattern logo on the chest, which looks very nice. When he came to Parker with the drawings of his own designed suit, Parker was excitedly spraying spider silk on the surrounding walls with both hands and wrists. He looked like a big kid who got a fun toy, well, a bit like a naughty kid. Octavia's indifference let Parker know that someone was approaching him, and he immediately turned around and looked over. He saw that it was Jiujiu who was coming, holding a piece of paper in his hand, and he could vaguely see what was drawn on it. Parker suddenly smiled and said to Jiujiu, "Yi, you're here. Thank you so much. This spinnerette is so easy to use. I feel like a real spider. It's so cool. Hee hee." Having said this, Parker laughed awkwardly and raised his hand to pat his head. He was embarrassed because he saw that the walls were covered with large and small spider webs that he had sprayed out with his spinnerette. Stand up. Jiujiu didn't care. If it weren't for the system task, he would be like Parker, spraying spider silk everywhere to test the function of the spinnerette. Before Parker could continue, Jiujiu stepped forward, handed the drawing in his hand to Parker and said, "Here, this is the battle suit I designed for you. Do you like it?" Hearing this, Parker immediately became interested. At first, he heard Jiujiu say that he wanted to design a battle suit for him. He thought Jiujiu was joking. When he got the drawings, Parker opened his mouth in surprise. He also shouted, "Oh my god! Yi! Is this my future suit? It's so cool. I really like this suit. Oh, I can't wait to wear it." Hearing this, Jiujiu shrugged easily and said, "Of course. I believe that as long as you wear this suit, countless people will scream for you. Of course, I plan to use the fabric of the stab-proof suit as the material of the suit, so that you can wear it after wearing it. It has enough breathability and is resistant to knife stabs. I'll wait until I buy the material tomorrow." Hearing this, Parker suddenly fell silent. He was really moved by everything Jiujiu had done for him. Not only was he the first person to understand and encourage him after he mutated, he was also grateful to Jiujiu for making him a spinning device and designing a suit for him that suited him. To be honest, if Jiujiu wasn't as old as him, he would have thought Jiujiu was his father. Take such good care of him. Seeing Parker's expression, Jiujiu asked in confusion, "Parker, what's wrong with you? Why are you suddenly unhappy?" Hearing this, Parker raised his head, with tears flashing in his eyes. He suddenly stepped forward, protected Jiujiu, and kept saying, "Thank you so much, Yi. You are so kind to me. I don't even know how to thank you. Hearing this, Jiujiu realized that what he had done had touched Parker. He couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed and wanted to tell Parker, "I'm really not doing it for you, brother. I am doing this to complete system tasks. You really misunderstood me." Thinking so, Jiujiu would not say it stupidly, so he reached out and patted Parker on the back and said, "Parker, you don't have to do this at all. We are best friends, aren't we? We will still be good brothers and partners who fight side by side in the future, right?" Hearing this, Parker didn't say anything, just nodded heavily, said a heavy reached out and patted Jiujiu's back several times. After these few shots, even with Jiujiu's current physical attributes, the shots made his back hurt. Parker had actually forgotten about it, because he came to see Jiujiu just after he got the ability. Before he had time to get familiar with his sudden surge in power, these few slaps were too strong because he was in a state of excitement. He didn't notice Jiujiu's abnormality. Maybe when he calmed down, he would think that Jiujiu was just an ordinary person. Why did he have such a strong ability to withstand blows? After a long while, Parker regained his composure. After leaving Jiujiu's arms, he looked at Jiujiu and said, "Yi, from now on you are my best friend and best partner. Let's work hard together." Jiujiu nodded casually and thought, "Yes. I have to work hard. Otherwise, when Thanos comes, we may all turn into ashes together." Thinking of this, Jiujiu grabbed Parker's arm and said as he walked out, "Parker, you have just gained the ability, and you still need to adapt constantly to control your ability and not hurt unnecessary people. Let's go. Let's go out together and take advantage of the dead of night to fully master your ability." Hearing this, Parker nodded in agreement, and excitedly went out of the house with Jiujiu, and came to the woods to get familiar with his ability. Seeing Parker leaping and hopping in the forest like a real spider, Jiujiu was very pleased and began to make a plan in his mind on how to train Parker to fight. This wait lasted for 2 hours. After Parker had adapted to his abilities, the two returned to Jiujiu's home. It was too late and they both went to sleep. Seeing Parker's excited and shocked expression, Jiujiu thought that the system mission still lacked a Spider-Man suit, so he left a message to Parker. "Parker, you can familiarize yourself with the function of the spinner first, and I will also design a suit for you. There is no way you can just wear a coat and go out to be Spider-Man." Haha. After saying that, Jiujiu ignored Parker's grateful eyes, turned around and walked away. Google search reading. You know, this task is related to a reward of strength and physical attribute points, and Jiujiu doesn't dare to be careless. If he waits for Parker to design his own suit, this task will be over. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network. Even though the suit that Parker designed for the first time, to be honest, really stretched the crotch and was baggy like a set of pajamas, it was still a suit after all, not a suit. After returning to his position, Jiujiu sighed helplessly after his excitement passed. The reason is, of course, that although there are a lot of materials in the space, the only thing missing is the fabric of the stab-resistant suit made of special materials, which cannot be used to make Spider-Man's suit. In desperation, Jiujiu had no choice but to draw Parker wearing the Spider-Man suit on the drawing based on the Spider-Man suit worn by Parker in the movie. Not to mention, the original Jiujiu had some talent in painting. Although his painting was not very marvelous, he could still draw the essence of Spider-Man's suit. The red grid-like headgear and silver-white goggles for the eyes. The tight-fitting suit is also grid-shaped with red at the top and blue at the bottom. When worn close to the body, there is a large spider pattern logo on the chest, which looks very nice. When he came to Parker with the drawings of his own designed suit, Parker was excitedly spraying spider silk on the surrounding walls with both hands and wrists. He looked like a big kid who got a fun toy, well, a bit like a naughty kid. Octavia's indifference let Parker know that someone was approaching him, and he immediately turned around and looked over. He saw that it was Jiujiu who was coming, holding a piece of paper in his hand, and he could vaguely see what was drawn on it. Parker suddenly smiled and said to Jiujiu, "Yi, you're here. Thank you so much. This spinnerette is so easy to use. I feel like a real spider. It's so cool. Hee hee." Having said this, Parker laughed awkwardly and raised his hand to pat his head. He was embarrassed because he saw that the walls were covered with large and small spider webs that he had sprayed out with his spinnerette. Stand up. Jiujiu didn't care. If it weren't for the system task, he would be like Parker, spraying spider silk everywhere to test the function of the spinnerette. Before Parker could continue, Jiujiu stepped forward, handed the drawing in his hand to Parker and said, "Here, this is the battle suit I designed for you. Do you like it?" Hearing this, Parker immediately became interested. At first, he heard Jiujiu say that he wanted to design a battle suit for him. He thought Jiujiu was joking. When he got the drawings, Parker opened his mouth in surprise. He also shouted, "Oh my god! Yi! Is this my future suit? It's so cool. I really like this suit, oh, I can't wait to wear it." Hearing this, Jiujiu shrugged easily and said, "Of course. I believe that as long as you wear this suit, countless people will scream for you. Of course, I plan to use the fabric of the stab-proof suit as the material of the suit, so that you can wear it after wearing it. It has enough breathability and is resistant to knife stabs. I'll wait until I buy the material tomorrow." Hearing this, Parker suddenly fell silent. He was really moved by everything Jiujiu had done for him. Not only was he the first person to understand and encourage him after he mutated, he was also grateful to Jiujiu for making him a spinning device and designing a suit for him that suited him. To be honest, if Jiujiu wasn't as old as him, he would have thought Jiujiu was his father. Take such good care of him. Seeing Parker's expression, Jiujiu asked in confusion, "Parker, what's wrong with you? Why are you suddenly unhappy?" Hearing this, Parker raised his head, with tears flashing in his eyes. He suddenly stepped forward, protected Jiujiu, and kept saying, "Thank you so much, Yi. You are so kind to me. I don't even know how to thank you. Hearing this, Jiujiu realized that what he had done had touched Parker. He couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed and wanted to tell Parker, "I'm really not doing it for you, brother. I am doing this to complete system tasks. You really misunderstood me." Thinking so, Jiujiu would not say it stupidly, so he reached out and patted Parker on the back and said, "Parker, you don't have to do this at all. We are best friends, aren't we? We will still be good brothers and partners who fight side by side in the future, right?" Hearing this, Parker didn't say anything, just nodded heavily, said a heavy reached out and patted Jiujiu's back several times. After these few shots, even with Jiujiu's current physical attributes, the shots made his back hurt. Parker had actually forgotten about it, because he came to see Jiujiu just after he got the ability. Before he had time to get familiar with his sudden surge in power, these few slaps were too strong because he was in a state of excitement. He didn't notice Jiujiu's abnormality. Maybe when he calmed down, he would think that Jiujiu was just an ordinary person. Why did he have such a strong ability to withstand blows? After a long while, Parker regained his composure. After leaving Jiujiu's arms, he looked at Jiujiu and said, "Yi, from now on you are my best friend and best partner. Let's work hard together." Jiujiu nodded casually and thought, "Yes. I have to work hard. Otherwise, when Thanos comes, we may all turn into ashes together." Thinking of this, Jiujiu grabbed Parker's arm and said as he walked out, "Parker, you have just gained the ability, and you still need to adapt constantly to control your ability and not hurt unnecessary people. Let's go. Let's go out together and take advantage of the dead of night to fully master your ability." Hearing this, Parker nodded in agreement, and excitedly went out of the house with Jiujiu, and came to the woods to get familiar with his ability. Seeing Parker leaping and hopping in the forest like a real spider, Jiujiu was very pleased and began to make a plan in his mind on how to train Parker to fight. This wait lasted for 2 hours. After Parker had adapted to his abilities, the two returned to Jiujiu's home. It was too late and they both went to sleep. 074 Take action. The next day, they got up early, made some breakfast and went to school together. On this day, Parker was obviously different from before. He was more confident. He raised his head high when he saw people. When he saw Gwen, he dared to greet Gwen. Seeing Parker's changes, Jiujiu was also very satisfied with the current Parker. After school in the afternoon, the two couldn't wait to return to Jiujiu's home. Because today, they can sew the battle suit designed by Jiujiu for Parker. The materials have been purchased. Jiujiu found an opportunity to put all the materials into the space and synthesize them into a special stab-proof fabric. Not to mention that this kind of fabric is lighter and stronger than the stab-proof fabric on the market, which fully reflects the black technology capabilities of the mechanical space. Of course, with this advanced material, Jiujiu naturally prepared a set of fabrics for himself, and when he has free time, he will also make a tight stab-proof suit for himself. Jiujiu naturally didn't need to wear a tight stab-proof suit to appear in front of outsiders, but it didn't prevent him from wearing the stab-proof suit inside. It was also good as a layer of security, wasn't it? Sewing clothes was not what Jiujiu was good at. Parker personally sewed the clothes with a sewing machine. Jiujiu just helped. More than an hour later, when Parker came out of the bathroom, what Jiujiu saw was the Spider-Man who had once earned billions of box office, appearing alive in front of him. Looking at the familiar Marvel characters he liked in front of him, Jiujiu was also full of emotion. Thinking that the Spider-Man in this world got the awesome nano suit with the help of Tony, the Iron Man, Jiujiu couldn't help thinking in his heart. If the Spider-Man in this world has his own mechanical hunter, does he still need Tony to help Parker? So, Parker regards Tony as his father. What will Parker do if it were me? While thinking about it, Parker walked in front of Jiujiu, patted Jiujiu on the shoulder and said, "Hey, man. Do I look cool in this outfit?" Hearing this, Jiujiu came back to his senses, raised his right hand and gave Parker a thumbs up and said, "Cool, so cool." Just after he finished speaking, the system voice sounded at the right time. "Congratulations to the host for completing the special task. Make a spider silk sprayer for Spider-Man, design a Spider-Man suit for Spider-Man, the technology level is insufficient, and only stab-proof Spider-Man suits made of special materials can be made in space. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the spider silk sprayer manufacturing drawings. The task is completed and rewarded with strength and physical attributes *1, and experience 1000. Hearing the system prompt, Jiujiu resisted the urge to check the attribute panel immediately, and chatted with Parker intimately. Of course, the topic was still about how to improve Parker's ability. Performance. Next, while it was still early, Jiujiu asked Parker to take off his hood and put on a coat over his battle suit. The two went out to the woods, and Jiujiu prepared to formally teach Parker fighting skills. Parker is no longer the same Parker as before. His reaction speed and strength are several times higher than that of ordinary people. He can even fight with Jiujiu, whose physical fitness has reached level 5. Naturally, he quickly got into the state of learning fighting skills. From the beginning, he was punched and kicked by Jiujiu from time to time, but later the two fought back and forth, and the speed of progress was terrifying. After several hours of fighting training, even the two of them, who were superhuman in physical fitness, felt overwhelmed. They both collapsed on the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. This also made Jiujiu feel depressed, and he secretly said, "This Marvel world is perverted, and the body of this mutant superhero is a bagel. I upgraded my physical fitness to level 11, but I was exhausted by Parker. It's really unfair." In fact, Jiujiu forgot that no matter how powerful Parker was, his own strength growth would not be as unlimited as his. When his level was high enough, Parker would be far behind him, and even the Hulk, the ceiling of Marvel heroes, would not be his opponent, and Thanos would naturally be completely suppressed by him one day. The two rested for half an hour before returning home arm in arm. After making dinner and eating, they went to bed separately. Lying on the bed, Jiujiu had time to open the system panel to check his attribute changes. Name, Jiujiu. Age, 16 years old. Occupation, mechanical hunter. Level 11, 5700/11,000. Attributes. Strength, 5. Stamina, 5. Intelligence, 13. Spirit, 13. Agility, 13. Speed, 21 meters per second. Energy, 1,300, 13 points/minute recovery speed. Occupational talents and skills. 1. Intermediate Combat Master. 2. Intermediate Mechanical Master. Pet, Mechanical Dog, Wolf Warrior *2. Mount, Chasing Wind. Special Space, Mechanical Manufacturing Space 1000 square meters. Drawings, 0. Special Permissions, 0. Note, Time Travel Function has 0 remaining times. Note, the only mainline Super God level mission, kill Thanos and his lackeys. 6 Cosmic Gems are rewarded for successful mission. Main World Mission, get 50 million Me Gold to buy Vibranium, and reward 1000 experience. World Hidden Mission 1, eradicate the Kingpin group, reward 1000 experience and 50 million cash. The increase in attributes only made Jiujiu happy for a while, but he was surprised when he saw the system task. Because he saw the last hidden task 1 in the world. Eliminate the Jinbing group, reward 1000 experience points and 50 million cash. This made Jiujiu very depressed about why he didn't see this task information earlier, which made him waste so much time. Eradicating the Jinbing group, what's so difficult about it? Just kill Jinbing and a few heads, and the Jinbing group will collapse, right? Why do you need to deal with his lackeys one by one? Annoyed, Jiujiu didn't want to delay any more, and even didn't care that Parker was in his home. He immediately got up from the bed, put on his clothes, and went downstairs through the window. What he didn't know was that when he fell to the ground, Parker, who was obviously asleep, suddenly opened his eyes. Parker's keen hearing heard the sound of the body falling to the ground, and he immediately sat up from the bed, rushed to the window, and saw Jiujiu hurriedly walking towards the street. This made Parker puzzled, and he muttered to himself. Strange, it's so late, where is he going? After muttering, Parker tilted his head to think about it, and hurriedly turned back to put on the battle suit designed by Jiujiu for him, and the hood on his head also flipped out of the window. In this way, Jiujiu walked in front, and Parker used spider silk to shuttle between the roofs and secretly followed Jiujiu. After leaving the street, Jiujiu stopped a taxi and headed towards Hell's Kitchen. 075 Killing Mission. Seeing Jiujiu get into the taxi, Parker became even more confused. He was not worried that Jiujiu would do anything illegal, he was just worried that his best friend would be in danger, so he hurriedly used spider silk between tall buildings. A chase ensued. The two of them arrived outside Hell's Kitchen one after another. After Jiujiu entered Hell's Kitchen, he went to his original position, put on the sportswear in the space, put on a helmet, equipped with a mechanical crossbow and a pistol, and walked out of the hiding place, walked straight to Jinbing's group building. On a building behind him, Parker squatted on the edge of the roof. Looking at Jiujiu, who had changed greatly, the doubts in Parker's mind deepened. Then, Parker followed Jiujiu, intending to see what Jiujiu was going to do. After entering Hell's Kitchen, Jiujiu took out his mobile phone and put it in his pocket, then took out the earphones and put them on his ears. As soon as he put on the earphones, Sky's urgent voice came out. "I thought you disappeared. Ian. It's been a few days, 3 days, and you just came online." Before he could finish speaking, Jiujiu interrupted him unceremoniously. "I have something to do these days." Even with a dry sentence, Jiujiu did not wait for Sky to speak and continued. The mission has changed. I'm going to kill Jean Bin and those big bosses directly. Please monitor Jean Bin's movements for me and keep me informed at any time. Do you understand? At this time, Sky was sitting in front of the computer, squatting on the chair with one foot, looking at Jiujiu's figure on the screen, holding a cup of coffee in his hand and drinking it in small sips. Hearing this, he almost drank the coffee in his mouth. He squirted it out, and after finally swallowing it, he said, "Is this true? Are you finally going to attack Kingpin? That's great. I've been waiting for this day for a long time." Haha. As soon as the laughter started, Sky stopped and said solemnly as if he remembered something. "However, you have to be careful, Ian. Kingpin's #1 killer, Bullseye, is back. According to the news I got, he came back specifically to deal with you. You must be careful. He is very sharp." Hearing this, Jiujiu couldn't help but be startled. He had known about Bullseye's existence for a long time, and he also knew that Bullseye was indeed a powerful person. In the show, even the equally powerful Daredevil Matt almost died at the hands of Bullseye. He should not be underestimated. You must know that although Jiujiu's physical attributes are abnormal, he has not yet reached the state of invulnerability. If he is not careful, he will be pierced into the body by Bullseye's flying knife, and he will not die or be seriously injured. However, Jiujiu is not afraid of Bullseye. He relies on the 2 mechanical war wolves. With them protecting him, Bullseye's flying knives will not be a problem at all as long as he is careful. Thinking of this, Jiujiu couldn't help but nodded and said, "Thank you for the reminder, I will be extremely careful." After saying that, the system sounded again. Congratulations to the host for triggering the kill mission, killing Kingpin's #1 killer Bullseye. Completing the mission will reward the host with 500 experience points and a mechanical fly manufacturing blueprint *1. After listening to the system information, Jiujiu was pleasantly surprised. According to the name, the mechanical fly was similar to an unmanned reconnaissance aircraft, but it was smaller than the drone. Although the specific performance of the mechanical fly is not yet known, Jiujiu thought that according to the consistent black technology style of the mechanical space, its performance must be much better than the so-called drone. While concealing his excitement, he followed Sky's prompts to bypass the hidden sentry arranged by Kingpin and move towards Kingpin Group. After walking around like this for half an hour, Jiujiu saw the towering Kingpin Group building. Looking at the building in front of him that was still brightly lit even though it was already midnight, Jiujiu raised his hand and summoned Wolf Warriors 1 and 2 from the pet space. The appearance of the 2 mechanical dogs immediately shocked Parker, who had been following Jiujiu, to the point of almost falling off the building. He was really shocked. Could Parker understand Jiujiu's previous makeup and hide his identity? But Jiujiu then conjured 2 full metal dogs out of thin air, which Parker could never understand. However, Parker soon became excited because he knew that Jiujiu was no longer an ordinary person. If he and Jiujiu got along with each other, there would be no barrier and they could get along happily. Then, Parker saw 2 big metal dogs coming out and surrounding Jiujiu. They rubbed their heads on Jiujiu's thighs affectionately. They didn't look like robot dogs at all. On the contrary, they looked like 2 big metal dogs. More like a real pet dog. Jiujiu didn't know that Parker was following him on the building behind him. After reaching out to comfort Wolf Warrior 1 and 2, he gave the order to sneak into the Kingpin building. Wolf Warrior #1 immediately walked up to Jiujiu, obviously preparing to explore the path, while #2 retreated behind Jiujiu, preparing to defend the back road. At this time, in a spacious room in Kingpin building, Kingpin's tall and burly body was lying on his back in a special boss chair, with his legs on the desk and a lit cigar in his right hand, and from time to time I would bring it to my mouth and take a sip. Holding a glass of red wine in his left hand, he shook it gently with his hand, glanced at it, and said to Bullseye, who was shooting at the target with a toothpick. "Bullseye, there is no news about that person yet. When can we kill him?" Bullseye paused in his throwing motion, and then continued to throw the toothpick in his hand. The toothpick shot out and shot into the target, making a dull "doo" sound. If someone saw it, they would definitely think Bullseye was a martial arts master. Because the red star on the target was already densely pierced with no less than 15 toothpicks. You can imagine that a light bamboo toothpick could be shot into the target by Bullseye from 5 meters away. What a powerful method is this? Is it something that ordinary people can do? Bullseye stopped throwing, turned his bald head, raised his right hand and touched his head, then smiled evilly and said, "Persia. Don't worry. As long as the kid appears in Hell's Kitchen, I will take action against him. Haha, I won't kill him, I will shoot the tendons of his hands and feet with flying knives, so that he can't move. In the end, I will torture him bit by bit, making him wail in pain. And let those who have ideas about Persia see the consequences of opposing Persia, and finally kill him." Hee hee. After listening to Bullseye's evil words, Kingpin finally showed a satisfied smile on his greasy and fat face. He took a puff of cigar and exhaled a large puff of smoke and said, "I trust you to do things, Bullseye. You have never let me down, and I hope it will be the same this time."